Good afternoon and welcome to IFC. Forgive us for starting a little bit later than anticipated, but our morning meeting went a little bit longer than anticipated. So we welcome you to be here with us. Members will be using their electronic devices, their computers. I remind everyone to put your devices on silent or vibrate mode. We will have 2 opportunities for public comment, one at the beginning of the meeting, one at the end of the meeting. Public comment will be limited to just 2 minutes per person. We will be on a timer because from what I hear, there's a lot of people that want to make a comment, and if someone else has already said what you wanted to say, please, you do not have to step up and say it again. You can just say ditto, and that would be great. If you'd like to call in and make public comment, the number for calling in is 888-475-4499. The meeting ID is 868-2322-7212, and then please press pound. I am Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno. I chair the Assembly Ways and Means Committee. My co-chair is Senator Don Darrell Loop. Committee Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Senator Buck. Senator Cannizzaro.
Here.
Senator Neal.
Here.
Senator Nguyen.
Here.
Senator Stone. Here. Senator Taylor. Present. Senator Titus.
Here.
Vice Chair Don Darrell Loop.
Here.
Assemblymember Anderson. Assemblymember Bacchus. Assemblymember Brown May.
Here.
Assemblymember Dickman.
Here.
Assemblymember Hafen.
Here.
Assemblymember Hibbets. Assemblymember Howdigi.
Here.
Assemblymember Koenig.
Here.
Assemblymember Mosca.
Here.
Assemblymember O'Neill.
Here.
Assemblymember Torres Fawcett.
Here.
Assemblymember Watts.
Here.
Assemblymember Yeager.
Here.
Chair Monroe Moreno.
And I am here. Will you please mark Senator Buck absent excused? And that will take us to the next item on our agenda, which will be public comment. If you'd like to make public comment and you're here in Carson City, I invite you to the table here in Carson City. If you are down south and you'd like to make public comment, I invite you to the table down south. And then we will go to our phone lines. I know there's a number of nonprofit organizations that received funding last legislative session. You were asked to be here. Unless your specific organization is pulled when we go through the list, there will not be an opportunity for you to speak. So if there's something you'd like to say, I invite you to come up to the table during public comment in that 2 minutes to make a statement. So. Not seeing anyone at the table here in Carson City. Oh, never mind. We have someone coming. Good afternoon.
I'll go first. Hi, everybody. My name is Christine Hull, for the record. I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada Center for Civic Engagement. And last session, we received an appropriation. We wanted to thank the Nevada Legislature for that appropriation. These funds have been used to support a wide range of programming and operational needs to support civics and history in our schools across the state of Nevada. We strive to use these funds effectively and efficiently, and we were able to leverage these legislative funds to double our budget through grants and donations. And so we appreciate this foundational appropriation. We did turn in a report that included documentation that shows our vital role in supporting and fostering civic engagement and education across the state of Nevada. We deeply appreciate your continued trust and investment in our work. Thank you for your commitment to advancing civic education. We look forward to discussing any questions you may have later in the item. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else in Carson City that would like to make public comment? You can go ahead and fill in all the chairs. You don't have to wait for the person to be finished. You can go ahead and fill in all the chairs. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Monroe Moreno, Vice Chair Don Darrell Loop, and members of the Interim Finance Committee. For the record, my name is Laura Meyer, and I serve as the Chief External Affairs Officer for Communities and Schools of Nevada. Today, I'm here to offer public comment on the funding that we received through the Special Appropriation Fund and the 82nd legislative session. Communities and schools received $4 million, $2 million through SB 189, $1 million through AB 525, and $1 million through SB 341. 100% of this funding was used to support site coordinator salary across the state, which allows us to place people in public schools during the school day to ensure that barriers are removed to student success. This funding allowed us to expand our programming in all of the geographic areas we serve. That includes Clark County, Elko County, Winnemucca, and Washoe County. This funding also allowed us to grow our site coordinator team by 20% and the schools that we served by 20%. We also saw 10% growth in the students served with school-wide supports and 15% growth in the students that were case managed. This was transformational funding for our organization. Overall, we served almost 100,000 students with school-wide supports last year and 7,000 with direct case managed support. This also allowed us to expand across the state, adding 20% more schools than we had in previous years. And our graduation rate was the highest that we have had to date, which was 97% of our seniors that we served graduated. So I'm here to thank you all for your investment and your support in the work that we do, and I'm happy to answer additional questions if we're called on later in the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was very impressive. Okay, seeing no one else here in Carson City, we will move to Las Vegas, and we can go from right to left for those at the table in Las Vegas.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Kimberly Abbott. I am the Mental Health Initiatives Manager at the Children's Attorneys Project at Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada, where we represent all of the children in foster care in Clark County. In that capacity, we are keenly aware of the deficiencies in our children's mental health system, and we had a front row seat to the collapse that happened with that system during the pandemic. We have spent the last 3+ years collaborating and working and advocating with our community partners, state leaders, county leaders to try to fill in the gaps in that continuum of care. As a result of a significant investment of ARPA funds from this body in August of 2022, we were able to stand up new and important programming to meet the needs of some of our most vulnerable youth in the community. Unfortunately, those programs have been stood up in buildings that are now potentially being demolished as a result of the Campus for Hope. We appreciate the concerns that Vice Chair Dondero Loop and this committee expressed at the last IFC meeting, and specifically as to items L1A today. We have reached out to leadership at the state as well as the Campus for Hope, and we're very pleased to report that they have come to the table and have been anxious to address those concerns. There is not a concrete plan yet, but we have been able to discuss an agreement that there would be no disruption in the capacity of services providing to children, no displacement of children without proper homes, and that any changes in those placements would have to be in sustainable buildings. We are grateful for the partnership that has come together to try to find a solution to this, and we are hoping that this creates an opportunity for improved facilities and increased capacity for some of our most vulnerable children in the community. Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to continuing to work towards solutions on this issue.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael D. Hollis. I'm the COO at Foundation for an Independent Tomorrow. Fit for Shore, we are a local nonprofit workforce development agency in the historic West Side, Lake Mead and Martin Luther King. I just want to thank the committee for your gracious donation with the funding from 525. I've pretty much been at Fit almost 10 years now, and the amount of work that we were able to do in this last year with the additional funds were amazing. Every Monday without fail, we have about 90 to 100 people standing outside to receive services from our organizations, and many of the times we have to turn away a lot of individuals due to our lack of funding. But with this additional money, we were able to serve more individuals. So we served 1,734 individuals, and out of that, 1,243 individuals went to training and received employment services. So we have definitely affected generations. And I just want to tell you, thank you so much for the lives that we are changing. And if you look in this room, this is what community looks like. And when we have additional funds for the nonprofit agencies, we're able to do more, triage the community, and provide success to all that's involved. So thank you so much for your time. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you so much for your comments, and congratulations on your recent promotion. You can go ahead.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Acosta, and I respectfully submit comment on agenda item L1A. As a resident of Senate District 20 and Assembly District 23, a pediatric health advocate and the mother of 2 teens, I urge you to halt the demolition of buildings 7 through 16 at the Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services site and to enact a comprehensive relocation plan. These buildings house essential children's mental and behavioral health services like crisis response, psychiatric residential treatment, autism-specific care, and parole case management. These programs are crucial to keeping youth with severe emotional and behavioral challenges out of hospital emergency rooms, juvenile justice facilities, and inappropriate placements. The closure of these buildings would further strain Child Haven and Department of Juvenile Justice, which are already overwhelmed with youth in crisis, and thus ensuring Nevada continues to place last in pediatric healthcare outcomes. As an advocate, I am often contacted by families with no resources to support their children with mental and behavioral challenges. The wait for services in Nevada is incredibly long just for children to be admitted to understaffed and under-resourced programs. Eliminating these buildings and their services, especially without a thoughtful and thorough plan for relocation, would have a ripple effect on the entire health ecosystem for decades. Please make the right decision for Nevada's youth by keeping these buildings open and their critical services available to our most vulnerable population. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Tamika Henry. I'm the Executive Director for the Aboto Collective, and I'm also the Director of Mentorship for Tulips. So I'll speak for both of us really quickly. I want to thank you all for your investment into our program through Assembly Bill 525. It made a tangible difference in our fight against food insecurity. With this funding, we strengthened our urban farm, invested in gardening education, and expanded our free produce bag program. Specifically, we supported garden operations, purchased seeds and soil. It allowed us to host hands-on gardening classes, equipping community members with sustainable food growing skills, and funded our free produce bag program, directly feeding over 500 individuals from our communities. And it also covered outreach and administrative costs. This investment has not only provided fresh, nutritious food, but has also empowered individuals with the knowledge to grow their own. Our urban farm has become a hub of resilience and education. I thank you for believing in our mission, and we look forward to continuing this vital work in the historic West Side. And also with the Tulips organization, Teaching and Uniting Ladies to Inspire Positive Success, we were able to continue our summer programming for the young people within our area. We made investments into Ty's Place. Ty's Place is a safe space for teenagers within North Las Vegas. It has become, that hub for tutoring, mentorship, STEM activities, and it is vital, very vital to that community. And so we do appreciate the investments that were made there as well. And if you have any further questions, I am available. I'll be here.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Tara Raines, T-A-R-A-R-A-I-N-E-S, and I'm here on behalf of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. The Children's Advocacy Alliance is an independent voice for Nevada's children advancing systemic change in areas of early childhood education, children's health, and child welfare. We achieve public policy wins through collaboration and collective impact with the community to ensure every child in Nevada thrives. I'm here to give public comment on agenda item L1A. When the removal of buildings in the Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services campus was brought to our attention in recent weeks, we were astonished to learn there was no established plan for the displacement of the critical children's mental health services provided on that campus. We recognize and support the development of the campus for hope and expanded services for individuals experiencing homelessness. However, we cannot ignore the clear pipeline between children with mental illness and our adult unhoused population. If we're serious about breaking this cycle, we must move from a reactive approach to a proactive one, prioritizing early intervention and stable continuous care for children, especially children with mental health disorders. This week, we were assured that the children's mental health programs will continue and that a plan to make this happen will take priority. However, again, this felt like an afterthought in response to a public outcry rather than a carefully considered priority. This is troubling. We are grateful that leaders across sectors came together quickly to rectify this situation, and we cannot continue to scramble to serve our children at the last minute. We're continuing our advocacy. We need leaders to communicate transparently with the public about how and where these programs will continue. We want to be certain there is funding and infrastructure for both children's mental health services and the Campus for Hope. This must be an and, not an or. Again, we are grateful for leaders who have come together to solve this. We cannot afford to lose even one piece of our already fragile children's mental health system. If we truly want to improve our community, children must be at the center of all support planning and not an afterthought. Again, we're here to partner and help create solutions for Nevada's children and families. Thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. Next speaker.
Thank you, Chairman Moreno, Vice Chair Dondero Loop, and members of the Interim Finance Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is MJ Maynard. I'm the CEO of the Regional Transportation Commission here in Southern Nevada. I am here to provide an update on SB 341, the $5 million appropriated to an allocated RTC to help stabilize transit operations here in Southern Nevada. We are deeply grateful for the support from Nevada lawmakers, which has been vital in helping us sustain transit services that drive both community well-being and economic growth. State funds allowed the RTC to increase service frequency on 7 routes, benefiting 670,000 residents and connecting Southern Nevadans to 275,000 jobs. As a result, we saw a 6.6 increase in ridership. The RTC was also able to increase paratransit services, which saw a 15.5% increase in ridership with over 200,000 more passenger trips in fiscal 24 compared to fiscal 23. The Silver Star program was expanded to provide seniors with greater access to essential services by providing transportation to medical appointments, pharmacies, and shopping centers. This revenue also assisted with our Clark County School District Student Mobility Training Program. We provided free mobility training for 409 high school and middle school students who are part of the special education program. And lastly, state funds were allocated to enhance transit safety by increasing security personnel and implementing an automated firearms detection system across our transit facilities. This included the installation of panic buttons on buses, an increase in security staff from 247 to 300 armed guards, and an expansion of roving officers ensuring quicker response times to incidents. I want to thank you again for your attention and your ongoing support, and we will be here to answer any questions you may have later in the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Moreno and Chairwoman Loop and the entire committee. My name is Tori Russell, and I am the founding artistic and executive director of A Source of Joy Theatricals, Broadway in the Hood, and the Legacy Theater of Excellence. I just wanted to first off start by saying thank you so very much for what you all have done for A Source of Joy Theatricals and for the community. Your committee, everything that you all have done have been absolutely amazing, and we sincerely appreciate your appropriation in 525. What we've done thus far with the money is we've partnered with the community to be able to look for a place that we are going to actually house the Legacy Theater of Excellence, where we will have daily classes, daily operations for as it relates for youth in the arts and in the community. This year, back in 2024, we had the opportunity to have the Legacy Theater of Excellence in schools. So we were able to serve over 50,000 young people in Clark County school districts and throughout all of the Vegas Valley. We will continue to work with the county and the city to find the exact location. We've been working very closely with them to figure out exactly the best location for the actual building itself. We've worked with local officials as well as different agencies to be able to make sure that it's in the proper place according to those that we serve within the community. We also look forward to seeing you all on February 18th there and Clark County for your celebration of African American History Month. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman and members of the committee. My name is Beth Martino. I'm the president and CEO at 3 Square Food Bank. I am here today to just thank you on behalf of 3 Square and the individuals and families we serve for your commitment to addressing hunger in our state, but specifically the $4 million that you allocated to support our food programs in AB 525 and SB 341. Especially at this time, these funds have been critical for us over the last 2 years. Your support enabled us to expand our programs to serve more people and to provide food to those who would otherwise go without. We've been able to remove people from our waiting lists for 2 of our cornerstone programs, Backpack for Kids and Golden Groceries. Backpack for Kids ensures school children who rely on school meals during the week have nutritious food to sustain them over the weekend. And Golden Groceries helps seniors, many on fixed incomes, access fresh and healthy food. This funding allowed us to reach families and seniors who had been waiting far too long for these services. We also increased production of our senior frozen meals, and we launched new mobile distributions for seniors at Nevada Hand Properties. And finally, we purchased more nutritious food for our network of community partners, many of whom are actually here in the room today, and help distribute it to families across our service area. The impact of your investment speaks for itself. As indicated in the reports we've submitted, we've served at least 29,000 additional individuals and 120,000 households, which equates to more than 850,000 additional pounds of food to families, seniors, and children who depend on us. And those are more than just numbers. They represent children who didn't go to bed hungry, seniors who can focus on their health instead of worrying about their next meal, and families who can feel a sense of stability during difficult times. Looking ahead, we know these challenges of food insecurity will persist. Food prices remain high, federal funding is uncertain, but thanks to your investment, I believe that we are well positioned to respond to these challenges with strength and resilience. So we thank you for your vision, your compassion, and your dedication to building a stronger and healthy state. I'll be here throughout the afternoon to answer any additional questions that you may have.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Fulala Riley. I'm the CEO of Help Us Southern Nevada. We prevent and end homelessness, one individual, one family, one youth at a time. This morning, 800 individuals woke up in a Help Us Southern Nevada program bed, and your investment from the 525 of $25,000 towards our Shannon West Homeless Youth Center was much appreciated. And of course, it allowed us to maintain staff, an appropriate staff to resident ratio in a time that we were experiencing low staffing levels. That year of the funding, there was 563 unduplicated youth with an average stay of 100 days. 80% of those young folks have a mental health diagnosis, and 30% were already considered chronically homeless. So in closing, I would like to encourage this committee, as you look forward to what you are going to fund, that we as a state need to make concurrent investments in prevention of homelessness, in the interim solutions, as well as permanent solutions. Apologies, I won't be able to stay all day. I wasn't able to reschedule all my afternoon appointments. So happy to answer any questions before I leave. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Sheets. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of HopeLink of Southern Nevada. $2 million of AB 525 was provided to HopeLink and was earmarked for 2 programs, Hope for Seniors, which is emergency rental gap rental assistance for elderly senior citizens who might otherwise be evicted or face imminent eviction. And also we developed a team for agency capacity building. In the first year of this program, we helped over 300 seniors never experience a day of homelessness because we were able to provide assistance to them. And our development team so far has raised $7 million, which will help us continue Hope for Seniors and other critical programming in the future. Neither one of these things would have been available to us if we didn't receive that $2 million. So we are grateful to this committee. We're grateful to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Monroe Moreno and Chairwoman Dondero Loop and the entire committee. My name is Courtney Morin. I'm the Manager of Advocacy and Family Engagement at Opportunity Village. We're here to thank you for the incredibly generous $250,000 appropriation through AB 525 in support of those with disabilities. This has gone to support a number of programs that we were able to launch through our family engagement and outreach team. This includes more than 150 families served, 1,394 outreach contacts made. This is through a number of education programs and support groups, conferences, a family focus group on technology, and I was also able to get credentialed through this appropriation in workforce development. We are so grateful for the continued investment in the population that we serve and the families that go into supporting this population. Without these funds, we would not have been able to have the far outreach and impact that we were. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Second. Good afternoon, esteemed members of the legislature. My name is Johnny Dominguez. For the record, I am the Executive Director for Leaders in Training. Thank you for the opportunity to present how the funds allocated through Assembly Bill 525 have been utilized to support leaders in training in our mission to empower Nevada's youth, first-generation college students from low-income backgrounds in Southern Nevada. These funds have allowed us to support students, helping them overcome academic, financial, and social barriers in pursuing higher education. LITA serves 257 students, including 95 in our alumni program, 99 in our post-secondary program, and 63 from 22 different high schools in Clark County School District here in our high school program. We intend to expand more students in other Southern Nevada communities, responding to the increasing demand and the region's educational needs. As outlined in the report provided to the committee, a significant portion of the $250,000 provided by AB 525, $235.99.111, was allocated to our high school program, expanding staff and resources and supporting college visits, internships, meals, and college application and testing fees. LIT continued to provide one-on-one support and workforce development opportunities, navigating financial aid, post-secondary pathways, and gaining volunteer experience through events. As a result, Cohort 9, our graduating class of 2024, achieved 100% college acceptance rate with a 100% graduation rate, with students enrolling in institutions like UNLV, UNR, Oregon State, and U.S. Army, and the University of San Diego. Our post-secondary alumni received $15,033.64, funding career coaching, LSAT prep, networking events, and graduation stoles to honor our students' accomplishments. Additionally, we use 525 funding for operational improvements, such as internet services, printing resources, security, and purchasing 25 laptops for students. Through this funding, our high school students have excelled socially, led community service projects, and engaged in community service initiatives like those completed by Cohort 11 in partnership with former State Senator Valerie Weiner on teen health, sexual health and child literacy. These projects demonstrated our students' leadership potential and the commitment to community impact. In conclusion, AB 525 allowed us to strengthen and expand our services, providing more first-generation college students with the tools and opportunities they need to succeed. We are deeply grateful for the work and look forward to continuing our work with your partnership to create pathways to higher education for not just Nevada students, but all students. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to empower Nevada's youth. I'll be here for any questions you have.
Thank you so much. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Kimberly Kindig, CEO of Candlelighters Childhood Cancer Foundation of Nevada. On behalf of our organization, our board of directors, and the families we serve, I want to express my deepest gratitude for your support and thank the members of the legislature who have served as champions for our cause. Candlelighters received a total sum of $2 million under AB 525 and SB 341. These funds have been used to realize Candlelighters' longtime dream of a new home and growth of our family-centered programs. As the first and oldest nonprofit organization in Nevada dedicated exclusively to supporting children diagnosed with cancer and their families, This building will bring hope and comfort to the 400 families and 1,800 children we serve each year. Last June, we leveraged this funding to purchase our forever home and began our first phase of renovations. 2 weeks ago, we moved into this new building, which is double the size of our previous space. More than just a larger building, our community hub will incorporate intentionally designed rooms like a teen drop-in room, parents' lounge, and counseling rooms that address the wide array of psychosocial needs of children and their parents. All of our services are provided at no cost, and for 72% of our families who are low to moderate income, these programs and services would otherwise be unavailable. The ultimate goal is to foster social connection and emotional support, both levers that drastically decrease the impact of emotional trauma and improve health outcomes for the entire family unit, including the child diagnosed with cancer. For more than 45 years, our families have been waiting for this moment, and I cannot properly express how much this means to them and us. One of our parents said, "Candlelighters gives kids and families hope for brighter days ahead and shows families that even in hard times, they are never without support." For parents like me, the new Parents Lounge will provide a safe space for parents to talk about the things that we are usually too scared to say out loud. We are truly honored to have received this transformational support, knowing that together we will drastically improve the lives of children facing cancer, their brothers and sisters, and their moms and dads. Again, thank you for your partnership.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Habekorst. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Spread the Word Nevada. Spread the Word Nevada is a children's literacy nonprofit in our state, the largest one, and we started 24 years ago in the garage of my home. I welcome the opportunity to share our gratitude to the Interim Finance Committee and all of Nevada legislators for their appropriation of $500,000 to our mission of literacy for all of Nevada's children. Because of this investment and others, Spread the Word Nevada served over 57,000 children across our state last year, which was a 12% increase over the numbers served the prior year. Our Kids to Kids book program which grows home libraries and Breakfast with Books family literacy programs are in 80 schools across our state, serving Clark, Washoe, and Elko counties. Our Books and Buddies program is currently serving 666 kids in Clark County with one-on-one reading time with a consistent adult mentor every week. Our RIT program, which is our Readers in Training program for early literacy readiness, is focused on birth to 5-year-olds and has served 1,137 little ones and their parents and guardians in 10 out of the 16 of our counties across the state. We have expended $435,288 as of December 1st, 2024. A large portion of this appropriation was spent on books. $72,356 was used to purchase over 362,000 books to date for all our programs. This equates to the buying power of 20 cents a book. This past fiscal year, we increased our distribution of books by 31,000 to over 500,000 books in one school year. Another big investment was in our grant writer over the past year and a half. A $94,000 investment in grant research, writing, and reporting was leveraged into a $2.1 million increase in our program funding, a 41% increase for year over year, with an overall program expenses only increasing $1.1 million or a 20% increase. Salaries, health benefits, and rent took up another large chunk of this funding. Lastly, our community support for our program is phenomenal and growing, as evidenced by a 93% increase in volunteer involvement. Last year, we had over 7,000 volunteers engage with us through either mentoring, book cleanings, or program or event support. This speaks to the power of our work, the realization of the need to help our children, and the recognition that education is the greatest equalizer and literacy is the pathway to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Abigail Marroquin, and I'm here representing the Latino Youth Leadership Conference. I am the current director of our summer program, and I just wanted to express gratitude for the $10,000 appropriation given to us through Assembly Bill 525 that allowed us to acquire dormitory spacing and event spacing at the College of UNLV. In our partnership with UNLV, Nevada State, and CSN, we now have grown our alumni base by 74 and have now approximately over 3,000 alumni members. Our members yearly spend over 9,600 volunteer hours in order to provide resources for students to be able to access college, mental health, and a multitude of other resources in order to prepare for life after high school. We mainly focus on juniors and seniors and then continue the work through our alumni base afterwards, hosted at UNLV. Thanks to your generous appropriation, this is possible for us year after year that now we are celebrating 32 years as an organization and 10 years as a nonprofit. From all of us at the Latino Youth Leadership Conference, we just wanted to thank you greatly.
Thank you so much. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Chair Dondero Loop and Chair Monroe Moreno. Dan Musgrove today on behalf of the Children's Mental Health Consortium. I'm a former chair and current member of the Clark County Children's Mental Health Consortium. And I just wanted to echo and add my ditto to the comments of Ms. Abbott and Dr. Raines. I think it was this committee in December that really brought to light what was happening on the 20 acres of the SNAMS campus. And it was important for all of us to begin that process of understanding and being transparent as to what is going to happen to children's mental health services that are currently taking place at that campus. And it was crucial that those talks happen and bring in all advocates, because it really is important for those of us in the community who work on behalf of children and children's mental health that we understand what's going to happen. And again, the leadership of this committee, as well as folks like at Southern Nevada Legal Services and Children's Advocacy Alliance, as well as the consortium, it's important for us to understand and know so that we can be a part of those discussions. So again, thank you for your leadership on that. And we appreciate the fact that we're getting to understand where and when, how things will happen for these children. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you. Bring your coat. You can go ahead.
Oh, hello. My name is R. Byron Stringer. I am the founder and director of Vision Theatrical Foundation and the Toe Tag Monologues. As some of you may know me, I am a retired Metro police officer of 26 and a half years, where I've served on our streets, helping to make people's lives better. When I created the Vision Theatrical Foundation and the Toe Tag Monologues, it was to specifically work with our kids and to help them make better life choices. You know, when COVID happened, we had the highest suicide rate in the nation, right here in the state of Nevada. So something has to be done. We have to make sure that we are focusing and talking to the children on their frequency and not talking at them. Your donation of $10,000 last year helped us to inspire, to reach, to uplift, and to help kids make better choices. We believe in teaching kids things like critical choices and how to make better choices and decisions, and how to think things through, and how to have good friends, and how to make better choices concerning your life. But most of all, how to understand that each life is so valuable, because a lot of our children don't know that. But your donation helped us to have more funds so that we can reach out and inspire more kids. We go into the school district and we do the Toe Tag Monologues performances in front of the high school kids, junior high school kids, as well as elementary. We also do workshops where we teach the kids how to do the Toe Tag Monologues. And it's just quite phenomenal, because kids are not just performing, but they're taking messages and dealing with things that are life-changing, things that their kids, that their friends and kids around them are dealing with every single day. That's why it's important that we learn how to empower our kids and how to listen to them and how to get them to listen to us. Thank you so much for your donation. And moving forward, we're going to continue to inspire our kids in the Juvenile Detention Center, in the Clark County School District, and across our nation. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amy Marie Merrill. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the co-executive director of the Cupcake Girls, an organization that also received money through the Appropriations Fund. Thank you so much to Danielle Monroe Moreno for seeing us, and the rest of the team as well. Really appreciate everyone's acknowledgement of the important work that we're doing here in Nevada and nationwide. This grant was spent on participants in Nevada, people that are trying to leave their traffickers. We were able to pay over $2,000, $2,905 from this money. It went directly to pay for 6 people that were looking to leave their traffickers and be housed in an appropriate rental facility that was far away from their trafficker here in Southern Nevada. We were also able to pay $300 in winter microgrants to 15 people. We were able to discuss with their utility companies to lessen the amount paid in utilities and then pay for the $300 to take care of all of those folks. We also were able to do street outreach to folks that are living on the streets in Southern Nevada and are experiencing either working within the sex trade or working to flee their trafficker. We were able to pay for over 1,000 hygiene kits with $763 of this appropriations money. And then the rest of the money, the $5,985, was spent on paying for a counselor in our office who provided absolutely free counseling to folks that were experiencing healing from trafficking. 20 folks received absolutely free counseling for 15 months because of this. Thank you so much for all the work that you have done and continue to do to create a safer Nevada for all of us.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Interim Finance Committee. My name is Trin Dang Mai, Executive Director of NAMI Southern Nevada. On behalf of our NAMI team, our board and family members and peers that we serve, I'd like to thank you for your support of $25,000 to NAMI Southern Nevada under AB 525. NAMI is a national peer-led mental health organization that provides support, education, and advocacy to families and individuals impacted by mental health conditions. With 4 affiliates in our state in Nevada, NAMI Southern Nevada serves Clark County. Our peer-to-peer program is a confidential and stigma-free program designed to provide support to individuals and families with mental health conditions, led by trained peer support specialists. This program offers a safe space for participants to share their stories, gain insights, and develop coping strategies through our 6 to 8 week education classes, our weekly support groups, presentations, wellness classes, and one-on-one peer mentoring. We focus on empowerment, education, and building community connections to help participants navigate their mental health journey with hope and resilience. This grant helped us to provide emotional support by creating that safe supportive environment. We increased mental health education by equipping participants with knowledge about mental health conditions, treatment options, and coping strategies to enhance and manage their mental health more effectively. We empower participants by encouraging their personal growth, self-advocacy, and help them feel more confident in managing their own mental health and navigating the mental health system. We help reduce stigma surrounding mental health conditions by fostering open communication and conversations, building empathy, and promoting acceptance. We build resilience by teaching practical tools and techniques for handling daily challenges and maintaining a sense of hope for the future in recovery. We strengthen peer support networks by fostering long-term relationships and community bonds that continue beyond our programming. The funds from AB 525 supported our program staff wages and professional development training for capacity building. Our program managers and coordinators work closely with over 2 dozen interns in the past year, as well as dozens of other volunteers to help coordinate different programming. We held 11 education classes, including 6 crisis intervention team trainings with 141 participants. We've held family, peer, and youth weekly support groups 194 times last year with over 1,770 participants. We've held 80 presentations with 1,652 participants throughout Clark County, as well as 127 wellness classes and social hour activities throughout the year with over 1,472 touch points. Our interns and volunteers have helped answer over 1,300 helpline calls and emails from folks reaching out for mental health support and resources. After tabling 53 tabling events, they've also provided outreach to over 900 participants. In this past year, we provided over 462 programs with 7,200 participants. I'm also available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. See no other speakers at the table in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone joining us on the phone line that would like to make public comment at this time?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now.
Good afternoon, Chair Monroe Moreno, Vice Chair Dondero Loop, and esteemed members of the Interim Finance Committee. For the record, my name is Char Frost, CHARFROST, and I am here as a resident of the state, specifically Assembly District 18 and Senate District 7, and a member of the Clark County Children's Mental Health Consortium. I'm providing public comment today in regard to item L1A. For many years, I've been an advocate for children's mental health due to my family's personal experiences navigating complex child serving systems, including the mental health system. For years, families have been able to obtain community-based, therapeutic, and supportive services at the West Family Service Center on the SAMS campus for their Medicaid-eligible, uninsured, and underinsured children. Currently, there is no way to know whether the state will be able to find office space where it would be possible to co-locate all of the programs that provide direct services to families. If co-location is not possible, these changes could become potential barriers for families to receive mental health services, as well as a potential barrier to collaboration for multiple providers of a family. Prior to the December 2024 IFC meeting, this has not been a transparent process on the part of the state of Nevada. Prior to November, Desert Willow, the only state-run inpatient psychiatric facility for children and youth, had been undergoing a hardening project. That project was abruptly abandoned in early November, and although there was testimony that Desert Willow would not be impacted, it begs the question as to why the hardening was halted. I would encourage this body to ensure transparency for the individuals and families who are served at the West Campus, as well as the numerous people who live near the campus, CSN and their students, and the legislature. There should be a comprehensive plan to prevent disruption of services to children, youth, and their families, and that plan should be made available to the public. Having just reached a settlement agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, it is critical that the children's mental health infrastructure already in place not be unduly disrupted. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no other callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you so much. And I'll remind everyone here in the audience and those watching us virtually that there will be another opportunity for public comment at the end. As the chair of this committee, I'm going to take a point of privilege to say, oftentimes people ask why legislators do the work that we do. We don't get paid to do the work that we do, and we put in a lot of hours. And I think you've heard from a number of the organizations speak today as to our why. It's not often that we're able to have such a positive impact on families and organizations in our communities, especially those nonprofits that are on the ground every day doing the work that unfortunately we cannot do. You heard the why we do what we do. At the end of the last legislative session, some of us took a huge hit for some of the legislation that appropriated funding to those nonprofits doing the work. And I would take that hit 100 times over for the stories that we heard today. This is the why. This is why we're legislators. This is why we run for office, to serve the community, to serve you. And for all those organizations that spoke today and those that could not speak, thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for the work that you've been doing. I know that in the last 36 hours, we've had some roller coaster times with the federal government, and none of us knows what's going to happen. But I want you to know that we see you, we appreciate you, and we know the hard work that you're doing. And we're here to be a team member with you in helping the families in our communities. So thank you. And with that, we will go on to the next item on our agenda. I will ask our fiscal analyst to go over the items on the agenda to be pulled for further discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Sarah Kaufman, Legislative Council Bureau Fiscal Analysis Division. Today I will be going over lists E, H, I, and L to identify the items that the committee has requested to be pulled for further discussion. Beginning on list E, which is a request for allocation from the IFC Contingency Account General Fund to implement language access plans pursuant to Section 1 of Assembly Bill 480 of the 82nd legislative session. There are no items recommended to be pulled from this list. Moving on to list H, which is the approval of work program revisions for the expenditure of American Rescue Plan Act Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds in accordance with NRS 353-220. There are also no recommended items to be pulled from this list. Moving on to list I, which is the approval of gifts, grants, work program revisions, and position changes not involving the expenditure of American Rescue Plan Act Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds in accordance with Chapter 353 NRS. There are 4 items that are recommended off of this list, and they begin on page 3. I would note on page 3 there was item number 15 that was requested to be withdrawn. That request came in today. Items 16 and 17 are requested to be pulled, and those are for the State Public Charter School Authority. Moving on to page 10, items 48 and 49 are to be heard together with item F, and those are for the Department of Health and Human Services Division of Healthcare Finance Policy for Nevada Checkup as well as Nevada Medicaid. So items 48 and 49. On page 18 of list I, item 94 for the State Department of Conservation Natural Resources Division of Forestry and Fire Suppression is requested to be pulled. And then on page 20, item number 103, the Department of Veteran Services Northern Nevada Veterans Home Account is also requested to be pulled. Moving on to list L, which is the informational items. Item number 1A, the Office of the Governor, information on the requested plan for $3.8 million in Federal American Rescue Plan Act Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds originally allocated to provide renovations on Building 9 for the West Charleston campus is recommended to be pulled. And then on page 5 of the informations list, item number 3A for the Department of Administration, the Division of Human Resource Management, State of Nevada Classification and Compensation Study is requested to be pulled. And Madam Chair, that concludes the items recommended by the committee for further discussion.
Thank you so much. Members, I hope you've had an opportunity to go through your packets. Are there any other items you would like to have pulled for further discussion today? Okay, I am not seeing any other items. Before we go to a consent vote for the other items not pulled, I'd like to invite the GFO's office up to the table as to why item I-15 was asked to be withdrawn just a few hours ago. Just an explanation before we. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. Thank you for your patience and indulgence with this. Item number 15, we found out late yesterday afternoon the agency wanted to make some changes to the way this was The request was being funded, is my understanding. With some discussion on that, we recommended that it not go forward as it was. It was not a change that could be made at the table, and this morning they decided that they did want to change the way it was being funded. So we kind of had to pull it, unfortunately.
Do they plan to readdress it later? I know we have another IFC, but that will happen during the legislative session. And when we're in session, there's no opportunity to access contingency funding. So will they be able to take care of this item?
Thank you. Curtis Palmer, for the record. It is my understanding they will come back in June and that they would still be able to spend the money.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Members, seeing no other items pulled, I will accept a motion to approve all items that were not listed by our fiscal analysts to be pulled, to be approved.
Madam Chair, I'd so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. For those of you that joined us here today and your item was not pulled, you are free to go. Thank you for joining us. And we'll just stand at ease while people exit the room. Okay, it looks like we've pretty much cleared out the room. And we will bring the meeting back to order and go to the next item on our agenda, which is the statement of the IFC contingency account balance. And we'll ask Ms. Kaufman to go through the balance for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The IFC contingency account balance can be found in volume 1 of your packets. It begins on page 5. The unrestricted general fund balance currently stands at $12.2 million. There are 2 requests for the unrestricted general fund account for a total of $283,997. And if those 2 requests are approved today, the remaining balance for the IFC's unrestricted general fund contingency account would be approximately $11.9 million. There are no requests for the unrestricted highway fund, and it currently stands at $1.6 million. There are 3 requests for the restricted general fund and highway fund appropriations. Currently, there is $133 million as the balance for the restricted general fund and highway fund. The requests that are being made are for a total of $415,453. And if those requests were approved, which they just were through the consent approval, The balance now is $132.6 million.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? This is just an informational. All right, not seeing any. Then we will go on to item D on our agenda, a request for allocation from the IFC contingency account. And D1 is the Department of Public Safety. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, chairs and committee members. For the record, my name is Christy Defer, and I'm the Senior Fiscal Officer for the Nevada Department of Public Safety. With me, I have Chief John Litos, and he heads up the Dignitary Protection Division. We are here today to respectfully request an allocation of $87,921 in contingency funding to fund projected in and out-of-state travel and operating expenses through the remainder of the fiscal year. And we are here to provide the committee any additional information and answer any questions you may have about this request. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions? Not seeing any. All right. So with that, I guess I will accept a motion to approve.
Madam Chair, I'd so move.
Second. We have a motion for approval and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item D2, Home Means Nevada, and we'll hear that with item J.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Marino and Chair Dondero Loop. My name is Perry Fagan, Deputy Director with Business and Industry for the record and President of Home Means Nevada, Inc. Today I'm here to respectfully request the transfer from the Interim Finance Committee account for $196,076 from the contingency account to be deposited in the account for foreclosure mediation assistance, then transferred as set forth in NRS to the Home Means Nevada account for Home Means Nevada, Inc. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have at this point.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions on the transfer request? My vice chair is looking intently at her book. No questions? All right, seeing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the transfer.
Madam Chair, I'd so move.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you
very
so
much.
much. The next item on our agenda will be item F, and we will hear that with item I-48 and 49. It's a request for transfer for the amounts between the budget accounts within departments pursuant to Section 53 of Senate Bill 511 of the 82nd Legislative Session. And we'll have the Department of Health and Human Services come to the table. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Stacy Weeks for the record. I'm here to present agenda item I-48 and 49. Both of these are related to a transfer of about 4.6 or 7 million in general fund appropriations to budget account 3178.
to fund a projected general fund shortfall in that account for our checkup program. This is our children's population that's covered under Title 21 of the Social Security Act. We're asking for this funding to be moved from 3243, which is our medical spending account, which is typically where we would have seen this population covered, but because of the unwind, the children moved over into the checkup population because they had higher incomes. So we're here today to ask for this move of the funds so we can ensure that we can pay their medical expenses.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions about the moving of these funds? We have to pay our bills. All right. Seeing no questions, I'll accept a motion for approval.
Madam Chair, I would so move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and it's been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. The next item on our agenda will be G, the American Rescue Plan Act Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Funds. And Mr. Leiser will be first at the table. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Interim Finance Committee. My name is Brody Leiser with the Fiscal Analysis Division of the Legislative Council Bureau, and I will walk through Agenda Item G1, the Statement of American Rescue Plan Act, Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund, obligations and remaining unobligated balance. In watching the Department of Wildlife earlier today, if I would have known how well it was received to have a video, maybe I could get a production team together to put together a little ARPA video. The table has been provided as a separate handout outside of the meeting packet. Members should have a copy at their desks. It also is available online on the committee webpage listed under Agenda Item G1. There's not a whole lot to go over compared to the statement that was presented at the December meeting, but there is a high-level summary on page 1 that displays actual expenditures of fiscal years 22 through 24. Again, no changes from the last meeting of the Interim Finance Committee. As you all are aware, these funds had to be obligated by December 31st, 2024. The state did obligate 100% of the funding by the deadline, and remaining funding which has been obligated must be expended by December 31st, 2026. As a reminder, the table generally lists items and program descriptions in chronological order based on the budgetary approval date, and as with prior practice, any changes to the table for existing rows since the last IFC meeting are identified in red text. There is just one new item added to the table on page 25, labeled as row number 288. This was approved to purchase a medical biohazard washing machine for the Lovelock Correctional Center, and it was funded through savings from a similar project that was approved for laundry equipment at Carlin Conservation Camp, which could be seen on row 52.66, which is on page 8 of the table if you're interested. There are 3 items that are before the committee today under Agenda Item H, which were all approved under the consent approval process, each of which reconciles budget authority for previously approved projects. Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks on the table. I did just want to address a couple things for the committee. Given some of the discussions that have occurred, we're unaware of any directive at the federal level relating to these funds, these particular funds. I do want to remind the committee members that the state of Nevada received its full award of this funding. The whole $2.7 billion was received by the state on June 4th of 2021. So that is funding. Any funding that's remaining, which has been unexpended, is in the hands of the state. And then I do want to just remind the committee as we roll into the 83rd session of the Nevada Legislature, you in the money committees will have opportunities to hear about projects that received funding when the agencies that were sub-granted those awards or granted those awards have their budget presentations in subcommittee or full committee. So the committee will have opportunities to ask about progress of those projects and or any projects that are going to continue on into the upcoming biennium. We also will have a separate hearing for the COVID-19 budget account that will be in late February. And in advance of that meeting, we'll work to provide the members with similar information that you receive on this table, as well as a summary of what's accounted for in the governor's recommended budget related to these funds, a summary of projects and or positions that are recommended to continue, but continue with other funding sources. And as I said, any larger projects such as system modernizations or the Home Means Nevada initiative that are going to have funding budgeted for the upcoming biennium, as well as any other information that members would like to have. So with that, Madam Chair, just wanted to sort of put that out there as I said, as we roll into session, that there will be opportunities to discuss some of these in detail, and happy to answer any questions that you have or members of the committee have.
Well, I know there are a few questions or comments from committee members, but I just wanted to let you know that there is the scheduled April IFC, so that gives you more than enough time to get your video ready. So first, we're going to go to Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, as always, sir, for a good explanation and putting it in a font that I actually can still read without glasses, so thank you for that. First a comment and then a question. So thank you also for clarifying that Nevada has already received this funds, so that I know there's a lot of worry and a lot of panic out there about where we are, and I'm not sure anyone really knows for sure as the dust settles. But we do know that we have this fund in bank accounts earning interest for the state of Nevada, and they are there. So we have that, but then tell me a little about the process that we have until December 31st of 2026 to spend these funds. They've been 100% allocated. So as we have no further room that if they can't be spent now, we can't reallocate those. Is that correct?
Thank you. For the record, Brody Leiser, Madam Chair, through you to Senator Titus. There are, how to answer this the right way. So there is guidance from the Treasury relating to these funds about what happens next now that we've passed the obligation deadline. And if I misstate anything, hopefully the governor's finance office will correct me when they come up to the table. There is guidance from the Treasury that will allow for, say, in the event that a project has been approved and a contractor or vendor falls through, that the state could contract with a new vendor and utilize those funds for the same project. That certainly would be allowable. There also is guidance in one of the FAQs that indicates that after the obligation deadline, which we have passed, that recipients, any excess funds that were obligated as of the deadline, but not ultimately expended on an eligible activity, that those funds could be reallocated to a project that was obligated by the state prior to the deadline and for which is eligible under the Treasury requirements for the use of the state fiscal recovery funds. So we are still trying to fully understand what that means in terms of, does that limit the state to, say, re-obligating or repurposing savings for something that has already been approved to another project that has already been approved and funded with ARPA funds? So for example, we've heard about several IT projects. I think we heard about a couple yesterday that initially were funded with American Rescue Plan Act, coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds, but there's going to be additional needs, and so there's some one-shot recommendations in the budget. You know, if savings become available after, well, anytime now in December 26th, I believe under this guidance, those savings could be repurposed to those projects that were already obligated under the rules of the Treasury and previously funded with ARPA projects or ARPA funds.
And thank you for that, because I think it needs to be clear that we want to be wise how we spend this money, that we don't want to send anything back if we can help it, that we can't really repurpose it, but we can use it in the meaning that we had already allocated for if we have to. So thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question.
Thank you. Next up, Senator Neal.
Madam Chair, thank you. I'm just going to second the chair's response on the video collage. I have a preference for the washing machines in the prisons and any images in the various prisons in which they were placed. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I hope I didn't commit myself to something here.
You might have. You might have.
Senator Conazero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My colleague to my very far left, which seems odd. My colleague to my very far left, I think, sort of prompted me to kind of mention that I think, you know, in the last, I don't even know how many hours it's been, 24 or so hours in which we've been watching this intense, I'll use the speaker's words as well, political theater out of the federal government over what funds are going to be available to states and what funds might not be available to states and what programs might be funded or not funded. And we have talked to many agencies in the last 2 days to ask them, you know, what about these federal funds that are coming to your agencies or grants that you're currently working off of? And everybody was about as clear as mud as to what it would be covered or not covered by the actions from Washington. And so I think that when we are talking about these ARPA dollars, to suggest that because they came into an account that we have here in Nevada, that somehow in whatever the future actions continue in this robust play that I guess we're all in the midst of, that we know that those would not be clawed back, or that some of the agencies or entities that have been granted these funds wouldn't be able to then draw down those funds, I think is amazing to me, because I don't think we have that much clarity. But Madam Chair, I aside from that, and I think something that we still will have to keep an eye on, because all of these funds, and as I'm looking through all of these programs and have sat through all of these IFC meetings wherein we have appropriated these funds to programs and agencies, those dollars are going to do a lot of good work for programs and for people here in Nevada. And so I'm proud of the ability for us to have allocated and appropriated all of those monies in ways that I think are significant, and we'll obviously be keeping an eye on how those are spent. But mostly, Madam Chair, I had asked for the indulgence of this committee, because I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Mr. Leiser for doing an incredible job, and for all of the times in which you have come before us to talk about how much money we had left to appropriate, where those monies were going, what programs we were seeing savings from, where it was that we had put money and were being asked to put money, and to walk us through all of the many details, both here in the committee and also in preparation for these hearings, that you have done an incredible and phenomenal job. And I just wanted to say thank you for all of your very hard work and for giving us, I think, what is a good roadmap to continue to hold everyone accountable to spending these funds in the ways that we have designated them, which would be very hard to do without all of your very diligent work. So thank you so much for everything that you have done. And that was really, I think, the first reason why I'd asked for some time just to express my thanks to you, Mr. Leiser, for doing an incredible job.
Maybe turning into a tomato here and blushing, but just thank you to the majority leader for the very kind words, and truly mean that. I appreciate it, but you know, I have a lot of help with the fiscal analysis division and the wonderful group of people that we have that work for the division. And so while I'm up here and get the opportunity to be before you quite often, you know, I think that your comments extend to the whole division in that regard. So thank you very much for those. Appreciate it.
And they do. I know it is a team, and so we're very thankful to everyone who has helped with this. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any other questions or comments on this informational item? All right. Speaker Yeager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just be really quick. I mean, I would echo the concerns of the Senate Majority Leader that, you know, the federal government could always revise guidance, pull back money. I think they're talking about doing it with the infrastructure, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. So, you know, my advice to state agencies and folks would be spend as quickly as you can, because federal government can reach in and do whatever they want with this money. That being said, I just want to recognize how long of a trip this has been and how much of an effort it's been. I mean, we started working on this back in 2020, and I think at the time we looked at the December 31st, 2024 deadline, and we thought, well, that's really far away. And here we are, already into 2025. So I want to recognize the folks on this committee and the chairs of IFC, but those legislators who were here before us as well, because it didn't start with us. It started with some of us and other legislators, and started with the Sisolak administration and then transitioned into the Lombardo administration. And getting this money allocated has been a ton of work, but it has been a labor of love, and it's been a joint effort among the legislators and two governors' offices now. So I just want to say thanks, and I'll maybe also explain to the world why our IFC meetings were so long over the past 4 years. I mean, IFC meetings used to take a couple of hours, and when you put in all this ARPA money, we've had a lot of long days and long nights. And so a recognition of those who came before us and who are not here, and of course, a thank you and recognition to our great fiscal staff for making sure that every single dollar was accounted for. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I did all the sentiments of both of our leaders. All right, seeing no other questions or comments, you are free. You can't stop working on the video today, but you can tomorrow. We'll go to the next item on our agenda, which is G2, and invite Mr. Palmer from the GFO's office up and his team. You can go ahead.
Thank you. And good afternoon, Chairwoman Monroe Moreno and Chairwoman Dondero Loop and committee members. Thank you very much for your time today. As mentioned, my name is Curtis Palmer. I serve as the administrator for the budget division under the Governor's Finance Office. To my right is Lisa Galloway, ASO4, who manages and leads the ARPA team in our office. And I just wanted to express some apologies for Director Greenemeyer, who is not able to be with us today. So the statement of the American Rescue Plan Act Coronavirus Fiscal Recovery Funds in the table that was in the report provided in a separate handout from the meeting packet. At the top of page 1 is a high-level summary displaying the expenditures from fiscal year 22, 23, and 24. The remaining unobligated balance is also reflected as zero with the funds currently obligated. According to the statement, if since the 3 requests before the committee were approved earlier today, the remaining balance is still 100% of the coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds as obligated. The table generally lists the program descriptions and amounts in chronological order based on the budgetary approval date. And today, those 3 that were approved earlier are at the bottom of that table. You'll notice that those are blank as far as numbers go because it is a net effect of just reconciling those amounts. So I just wanted to make a general summary. There were 380 total projects awarded. Some have multiple award allocations with supplemental notice of awards. 16 of those 380 projects were canceled ultimately. 107 projects report being less than 50% completed. 75 projects are more than 50% completed. 14 projects are still in the planning stages, and 150 projects have been completed. It is reasonable to expect that additional savings or deobligations may be identified now that we're past the December 31st, 2024 obligation deadline. For example, subrecipients or contractors may perform work under budget and thereby freeing up some previously obligated funds that we would need to address. As Mr. Leiser had indicated, there is some provisions for those funds to be reallocated as he had outlined. And we concur with his statements on that. There is still 23 months of the funds remaining to be spent, as indicated through December 31st of 2026. And we will continue monitoring agencies on a monthly basis, getting reports from them, and trying to keep tabs on where the spending and so forth is at. So to date, our office has reimbursed agencies in the total of $1,434,217,345. That's a big number, or about 52.4% of the coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds, with 100% of the funds being obligated, as mentioned. Agencies are self-reporting a spending amount of over $1,584,449,005, or 57.85%. The difference in those two numbers is the lag time between getting documents from the agencies, which, as you may understand, that a request for reimbursement comes with a lot of backup documentation, and so a lag in difference of receiving those documents in and us processing and making those reimbursements. But again, to commend this committee and others who have been involved in this project, it has been a huge effort to bring these funds out into the agencies and the public where they can do some good. And we're on a good path and trajectory at this point, and hope that continues. And that, Madam Chair, concludes my report, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for the report. Members, do you have any questions for Mr. Palmer? All right, not seeing any. Thank you. You get off easy on your first time before us.
Thank
We
you.
may not be as kind the next time, but it's good to see you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Members, we had nothing pulled in item H, so we will move on to item I. And we had 2 items that were pulled that we can hear them together, I-16 and 17. And Assemblymember Anderson will start with the questions.
Thank you, and actually, I need to apologize to both of you. This was originally pulled because I was looking through everything and seeing that there was matching funds for the federal items. After the discussion that we just had, as well as the rest of the conversations around the federal items, there's nothing we can do about it. Let's just be realistic. And so this just happened to be the first 2 items that I wrote down, and then there was about 9 more, and then I finally took the time to turn around and ask staff about it. So I actually do not have any questions because the items that are being asked around are federally funded items that are completely out of our hands. And so I'm so sorry to make you guys sit through the promise of getting a video later and everything else. But so please accept my apology, Chair, for that misunderstanding, and also to the charter schools as to where my questions were coming from.
Melissa Mackin, for the record, we'll take that any day, Assembly Member.
I appreciate your looking out and having the concerns. There are some things out of our hands. We wear our capes. People don't get to see them, but we can't fix everything. Thank you all for being here.
If appropriate, I'm more than happy to make a motion to accept these
Yes.
items.
I'll accept that motion. Assemblywoman Anderson made the motion to approve items I-16 and 17. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. That takes us to the next item that was pulled on list I, and that would be 94. And we invite the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Division of Forestry and Fire Suppression to the table. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairwoman Monroe Moreno and Chairwoman Donder-Loop. I stand for questions on this particular item, obviously, and of course I have a much more learned individual, Casey, the State Forester, here to answer questions as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Casey, for the record, State Forester Fire Warden for the Nevada Division of Forestry. I could give you a brief overview of what we're here asking for today, if that would be helpful. We are here today asking for a little over $11 million in advance of the general fund to pay for fire bills, current and past. Invoices at the time, this is different than what we usually ask for. I'm usually in the contingency section. This is in advance, so it is not based on bills I have to pay. It's based on the amount of invoices we had submitted for reimbursement at the time of submittal of this work program, which was October. That's where the $11 million came from. Just to give you an idea of where we're at today, we have $18.2 million in bills still to pay. I'm unable to pay any current fire year bills because I don't have any cash or authority. And invoiced for payment from the audit, and just because we were working on invoicing, is $23 million and a lot of other numbers behind it as of today. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. I know that we do have a few questions. We're going to start with Chair Donder-Loop.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The first question I have for you is, does the division anticipate that $11 million in revenue and expenditure authority, the additional funding, coupled with corresponding general fund advance, would be enough to cover those projected costs to the state for wildfire and emergency response services for the remainder of our fiscal year 2025?
Thank you for that question. Madam Chair, James Settlemeyer, Director of Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. That's a little bit of a crystal ball if we don't have any more fires. Potentially so. I'll let Casey answer that. We have other bills that are still yet coming in within 2024 to come to us, and once we get those bills, we have to pay them in order to then be able to invoice backwards to get that payment. But I'll let Casey elaborate.
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair, through you to Senator Donder-Loop. I don't anticipate that this will cover all of the costs, depending on how the fire season starts to begin to ramp up. As of right now, the $11 million, we're about $5 million in the negative in the account. We can spend up to the authority that we have, even without cash. So this will come in and fill a little bit of a shortfall. As I said, I'm $18.2 million of bills that I know about today in our system to pay. And so this won't cover all of those if they were to be finalized and adjudicated and accurate to be paid. So, and then we do anticipate potentially an earlier start to fire season if there is no snow that actually comes or rain in the southern part of the state.
Okay, so with that being said, what impact will the recent deployment of our firefighting assets to Southern California have on the projected costs to the state for wildfire and emergency response services then for this same fiscal year?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair, through you to Senator Dondero Loop.
You can go directly to the members.
Oh, thank you. Casey, for the record, again, that will increase our costs. We did send, I believe I looked at the numbers this morning, 5 strike teams and 2 task forces from Nevada. A strike team is 5 engines plus staff. Like type engines, task force is a multitude of different kinds of engines and water tenders. That's the only difference in the name. To Southern California, that was a conglomerate of local government and NDF assets that went over. Some of those, however, did go under the Tahoe Fire Chiefs agreement, and that will not be the fiscal responsibility of us. So 2 of those task forces and 2 strike teams and 1 task force will not be our fiscal responsibility. 2 strike teams and 1 task are ours. We don't have the estimated costs yet today, but we will be getting those in shortly.
Okay, so what issues then are preventing those outside entities from using the state's fire billing system to pay the division? And how does the agency intend to fix all of that?
Thank you for the question, Senator Dondero Loop. Again, for the record, Casey. I don't believe there are any issues that I'm aware of preventing those outside entities to bill us in our online billing system. That online billing system was fully functional in fiscal year, I should say semi-functional in fiscal year 23 and 24. And so local government is in, all of their rates are loaded, all of their equipment is loaded. That was what took us a lot of time, trying to get everybody loaded into the new system in 2022. And so they are able to bill us today. And as of October of last year, we are able to invoice out for reimbursements.
Okay, thank you. And then just one last question that with the federal funding unknown right now, and I know that we just did the audit committee, and we had a lot of discussion about this same thing, the billing. So with that, will that affect what happens with you? Because I know that the NDF, U.S. Forest Service, California Fire, whoever it is, they all interact. So how will that affect you? How will that federal funding affect your funding, your billing and your ability to use those funds?
Thank you for the question, Senator Dondero Loop. Again, for the record, Casey, I hope it doesn't affect us, but I couldn't say whether it's going to or not for the Forest Service and the BLM. We have been talking with them about the invoices that we have submitted, as I stated, at the audit subcommittee. I think we were just over 18 million. Today we're at 23. There doesn't seem to be an issue moving through their system. Where the payments might stop, I don't know. We were a little more concerned about the FEMA funds. Our fire management assistance grants, or FMAGs, through FEMA do go through those systems. We did speak to them yesterday. They were unclear as to whether this was going to get affected. We're kind of halted or stalled in FEMA grants anyway at this time, like the Davis Fire. We've got to be able to pay those bills before we can seek reimbursement. We have to pay all the bills. You can't pay one and ask for reimbursement through FMAGs. So we've got to pay for the entirety of the fire. We're not quite there yet with those. They have a 90-day from the end of the date of the FMAG agreement. So we have had to extend that already, and probably likely will have to continue to do that. So we're kind of like everyone else here. I don't know. I hope all of our federal partners have been optimistic. And what I can tell you is that that some of this money has even made it past, as you know, it first has to go from us to our local federal partners for approval and review. Then it heads to Albuquerque, where all bills come in from the nation and get paid, and some of those have already headed to Albuquerque.
Thank you very much. And I just had this discussion with somebody the other day. I don't think people realize how convoluted the fire system billing system is, and that when you send firefighters to California, that you bill California. You don't just send them out of the goodness of your heart, and vice versa. And then U.S. Forest Service comes in, and the BLM comes in, and you've got all these entities that come to help or go out to help, and that the billing system is quite convoluted. So with that, I appreciate the responses and the honesty, and I look forward to us working so that we can get that all done, paid, and get the NDF back on an equal tracking, because right now it's a little bit upside down. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you. And Chair, if you don't mind, I know that wasn't a question, but I would like to add something, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Casey again for the record, and I appreciate that sentiment. It is very complicated, but we did make some mistakes and we are correcting those. What I do want to say is the whole reason that we did try to move into this online system, and I will point to you a report you can't see, but I will be excited to share with you as we go forward. All of the aging bills are here, so you can see exactly who I owe what. I only right now have about $9,000 in owables on a state-to-state agreement. Everything else of that 23 is fed, but it's all in these reports, and that was why it was so critical for us to move from a paper system where we could not track that very well, as you saw in the audit, into this system, and the system is working. And so we appreciate the time and the understanding as we shifted to that, that it will be a lot more transparent to you all in the future.
Thank you very much, and I hope that the audit helped clarify some of that and helped your organization take in those suggestions and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few more questions. We'll go to Senator Taylor, then Senator Titus, and then Senator Nguyen to close it.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for the report and for doing all the work to kind of right the ship, if you will. The audit was interesting to me, and we know how audits go. They make recommendations, and sometimes we agree and we don't, and so on. But I'm wondering, what is the agency doing to implement some of those recommendations? I know you talked a little bit earlier, and additionally, and really I should say specifically, to improve the timeliness so we can get reimbursed and get back on track, as Senator Dondero said.
Thank you for that, Senator Taylor. In that respect, being formally in this body, we don't take much as suggestions from you guys. So we have a correction action plan. We've accepted all of the suggestions as not suggestions, but are implementing that corrective action plan. And within her list, she does have the ability to break out and tell you, as she just did, how much of the money that is owed is federal and how much the money is state. And again, 23.1 is total. Of that, only about $6,000 is state.
Thank you, Senator Taylor. Again, for the record, Casey. We did accept all of those audit findings. We had begun implementation on about 90% of them. Many of those corrections actually came with the full implementation of this online system. The bad record keeping, the unable to find things, that's largely due to paper copies and multiple staff moving, and who knows where the paper went. And so some people are paying on this side. And so when we transitioned over, a lot of those audit findings were actually in that. The ones that we had not addressed with this system, which there were about 5 of those, we are trying to implement right now. We've been working with GFO and LCB on solutions. The new system has caused us a few hurdles of the state's new system, as our override was a little bit halted for a minute, and we are having a hard time getting a category created to show more clearly the out-of-state responses. However, we are working diligently to implement all of those quickly.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, may I follow up? Thank you. Just it's kind of associated in maybe not follow up, but when I know you've gotten some billing out and it was 18, now 23, so great job. Any idea when do we expect to actually get paid for those?
For the record, James Settlemeyer, Director of Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Thank you for the question, Senator Taylor. The $23.1 million that's billed out, the LCB Audit Division kind of felt that we'd be able to get that paid back in 60 days. We've always felt that's kind of very optimistic. In talking to other states that have been out there for 6 months to a year, that's unfortunately about the best answer I can give. Obviously, Casey may have more information on that.
Thank you for the question, Senator. And again, for the record, Casey, I would love to say I know the answer to that, but I don't. That was the best answer. What I could tell you is how far they've been sitting, and that's what the aging report in this new system does pull. And so far, like as of now, we have almost about 9 million of those bills have been sitting for 90 to 125 days. So we are eagerly awaiting, and as I said, we are talking to our Forest Service and BLM partners. That's the bulk of the bills that are owed. It is not because they are, not trying. It's because there's just a lot of bills coming in. When it goes into the regional, we're not the only state that the bills are coming in. Once it gets to Albuquerque, there's the rest of the states, every state, and every bill, every hurricane, every wildfire, everything is coming into Albuquerque. So I was hopeful when the auditor said 90 days. I don't know that I've not seen that in my 22 years at NDF, but every once in a while, California does pay a lot faster. That is true. And so that's the one good thing about the response that was just sent to Southern California. That was a state-to-state response on a state agreement, not our federal agreement. So we will be able to bill that and hopefully get paid that amount quicker.
On that, and thank you, Madam Chair, for your indulgence. On that, just two more questions. I know there are a few more dollars in for us to bill. Any idea when are we going to get those? Not that we're going to get paid fast, but when are we going to get fully caught up and getting those invoices out?
Thank you for the question, Senator Taylor. And again, for the record, Casey, we've been moving at a pretty hefty pace. That is at the expense of actually looking at the bills that are coming in for payment. But because we don't have the cash or authority to pay, we've put those to the side for a second. We are optimistic. We did hire a contractor to come in to go through all the paper copies. We didn't want to train our new staff on the old system because it's quite arduous. And so we do have people moving in all of the areas that are owed. And we have bills, invoices moving out for all of those as of today. My hope I know we'll be done by June, billing out the 32 in the audit. We don't know what's going to come in for everything else. But when it gets reimbursed, I don't know. We're at 23 as of today. They're going to continue that movement. If this money is approved today, we will have to shift them off of some of this invoicing back to billing so we can pay the bills. But we continue to keep people focused on trying to do both. There's a lot of bills in the system, and bills and invoices needed to be pushed out of the system, and we're trying to balance that. We're almost fully staffed, 6 people in the system total, 5 actually staffed as of today. One request before you to change the title of, to reclassify the position, as last time we flew the position, we were unable to hire a qualified applicant. We had an underfill. So we are making shifts to try to make it better and bring in more talent. The hard part about fire billing, it has been the impossible angel to find. Somebody who understands fire expenditures and knows our agreements in and out of what is allowable and what is not allowable, and also knows state accounting. So it's been a challenge for us, but we're working through that.
Well, I just want to applaud your efforts. It's so convoluted in this, and from the outside, you certainly don't recognize that. So, you can't really predict when checks will come in, but should money come in while we're in this budgetary process over this next 120 days, will the governors appropriate the amount that the governor appropriated, that $18.5 million, will that be reduced if other monies come in? So, because then you'll have other monies where you can pay those bills.
Thank you, Senator Taylor. James Settlemeyer, Director of the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. The way this works is that the invoices that she has put out, that 23.1, if it all came in tomorrow, it goes into budget account 4196. We do not have the authority to spend money at a 4196 until you, the Internal Finance Committee, gives us a set authority. So when that money comes in, we will make sure you're aware of it, make sure the governor's office is aware of it, and then you guys could choose to make some adjustments, but we'd then have to ask for an IFC committee to be held to give us the authority to spend said money.
Well, I appreciate that. I believe you'll probably get it. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your indulgence for those questions.
Thank you so much. We're going to go to Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here. And Senator Taylor did ask a lot of the questions that I was going to ask, but I still have a couple more. Could we get it? There's money that we owe, that somebody came into Nevada property and fought a fire, but there's also money that are owed to us, whether it's a fire district that we, in Nevada Forestry, went out and fought. We fought on BLM land. So there's other layers, and as Senator Taylor mentioned, it is very complicated on we owe money, but then money is owed, and all these different layers of bureaucracy and different divisions of firefighters. My question is, do you have a breakdown of the different types of agencies that you could get to us? Now, how much is actually a federal firefighting that we owe, and that is owed to us, like BLM, Forestry, National Forest, those kind of things, versus municipalities? We go on private property. We go on to state parks. And so at some point, somewhere in your bookkeeping, could we at some point see in the subcommittee a breakdown of where that is, and so we can get a better feel for it? I know we have partnerships with AT&T and maybe to clear out electrical lines with the power companies. There's a lot of different ways our forestry spends money, and then also that we are owed money. So I think it would be helpful at when we get down to the subcommittees if you could provide us with those, if that's okay with the chair. And that's really a request more than a question.
Sure. This
Thank
is
you.
James Settlemyer, Director of Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. I appreciate the question. Casey has some of those numbers and could give some of them today or provide it as a report. Part of the issue comes about is it depends where the fire starts. So if the fire starts on state property, state's responsible. If the fire starts on federal property, the bill goes to the feds. And if FMAG is approved, then that supersedes that. And then it's considered a federal fire and goes there. Of course, that's my very limited understanding, and I'll let the expert, of course, correct me as always.
I wouldn't correct my boss on the record. Thank you for the question, Senator Tynes. This is Casey. I do have that. That's part of this report. This is the nice part of the new system. It will pull all of that information for you. It tells you exactly which state I went to, who owes me the money, how much, how aging those invoices are, if it's owed to us, how aged they are, if they have come into us. And so that is the nice part of the new system. We could and will provide that to you in the future.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. And yes, if you could provide that to our committee and can share it with all the members, that would be wonderful. All right, I believe our last question is with Senator Nguyen.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair, for that. My colleague, Senator Dondero Loop, kind of asked this, but I just wanted to get some clarification. She had asked about the impact of the deployment of Nevada firefighting assets to Southern California and what kind of projected costs they would have for the end of the 2025, I guess, fiscal year. And I just wanted to be clear. It's my understanding that those are 100% reimbursable. Am I correct on that?
The record, Casey, those are 100% reimbursable. Anything sent out of state is 100% reimbursable, unless it's the tiny little parts of the districts that actually are owned by, say, the Forest Service or Truckee Meadows that go, their jurisdictions go slightly across the California line in some cases. But in this case, yes, all of it.
So with the Southern California fires, these would be 100% reimbursable.
Yes.
James Settlemyer, for Director of Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, 100% reimbursable after we pay them.
Yeah.
And we don't anticipate, obviously, we heard the complicated nature that we're paying our bills on our end. And then we're seeking reimbursement for those, which should be 100% reimbursable. I guess, obviously we've talked about this a lot, and I know it's something that's been on your mind, but this roller coaster and the the aftermath of Trump's executive order and how it potentially freezes some of that federal funding for FEMA. And a lot of those grants would be, and a lot of that funding would be used to pay back these 100% reimbursable costs. I mean, I do have concerns that Trump's political theater is not only putting Nevadans at risk as we have them on the front lines fighting fires and putting their lives at risk, but it also puts us at risk for not recouping that money if these freezes, go through. What kind of impact is your office preparing for moving forward if we can, because we can obviously expect forest fires not only here, potentially our need to have FEMA come in and help accommodate and, help us with those. What kind of steps have you taken to account for this real potential loss of money based on, what we're hearing coming down from Trump and his administration?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Again, for the record, Casey. The FEMA FMAGs are the only ones we think could have a real potential. The FMAGs, just for clarification, are only Nevada fires. I can't get a fire management assistance grant on a fire in California. California has to apply and receive that funding. So even if it's a fire the name is going to elude me at this moment. But anyway, any fire that comes out of California and then comes onto Nevada land, there are 2 FMAGs applied for. I'm not sure why. FEMA is a whole different animal when you look at their processes. California would have one, and we would have one. The Tamarack was a good example of that. So we'd be applying for the costs. The FMAG fires reimburse up to 75% of state and local government fire costs. They do not reimburse federal firefighters, obviously, because they're all federal agencies. So unfortunately, the only plan we have is to carry that debt further until, if this particular funding was impacted, the state would have to carry that debt a little further until they figured something out on the FMAG side. And if I could have a minor go back, I do worry about the funding in the system. Part of the shuffling issue that you saw in the audit, and that does cause us hardship, is whenever any fire comes on. The Davis fire was a great example. It was an FMAG, a FEMA-approved FMAG fire. We have much shorter timeframes for getting those invoices in, and so that kind of trumps. So some of these out-of-state fires get pushed forward, so that's why you see 14, I don't know what is wrong with my years, 2024 fires that we have not, I don't know where 14 came from, but 2024 fires that we haven't, or expenditures that we just continue to push forward because something else has to move in its place. And so that's part of the shuffling act. If we had the cash and authority up front to pay the fire bills timely, we could then get reimbursed a lot more timely. But we're continuously having to shuffle what we pay. So when we send you guys a work program, you guys have seen this before, you often see the same bills getting pushed forward, and you've asked me those questions like, why is this bill on the last month's and why is it now on next month's? And it's because of that shift that is required. I have to prioritize which ones have earlier deadlines and start to pay. When I have a limited funding amount, I have to pay what's most important first, and then we hold. And right now, usually the federal government, we push them off till the very end. They're the last in the paying structure. It's contractors first, local government second, state agencies third. Right now, we're in tier 1. We're not even paying contractors. We had scoopers, we had seats on that Davis fire, and we were unable to pay those bills because we didn't have the cash or authority to pay current fire bills right now.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? All right, not seeing any. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd move to approve item I-94.
Second.
We have a motion for approval and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you so much. Next up that was pulled, item I-103. And Senator Titus will start us on the question.
Hello, and thank you. I was one asked to have this pulled, and I appreciate you being here, and thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me a question. I've been on this committee for a number of sessions now and was a very big supporter of the Northern Nevada Department of Veteran Services Hospital that was stood up and built and now has patients. When I saw this request for that kind of money, the $6 million for a shortfall, I raised the question of, number one, how did it happen? Because I can't really find it in your submitted material. And the second question I have is, are you still using contract services? Because it wasn't in the issue initially when we approved this that you were going to hire outside sources to run the hospital, so to speak. And I'm wondering if that's what happened, or I just need a better explanation than what you submitted. Thank you.
Senator Titus, Director Devine, for the record. At the risk of not doing math in public, I brought my finance folks to my left and right to help me make sure that we get all of those answers to you. Yes, we are still using a contract agency to run the home in Sparks for many reasons. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we go through our budget hearings and things that I started talking to you last week about. I will turn it over to Joe Thiele so he can give you the actual numbers and Jacob on how we got here.
Right, and thank you for that. And certainly during the subcommittee, we can detail all that. Yes. But this was that's a big hole.
Yeah. Joe.
Joe Thiele for the record. What it comes down to, basically, if you look at it, there was not enough authority to do the pass-through. We do a pass-through, it's not just the contract, it's the VA per diem, and we've come back in the past, and it's just in the budgeting system when it gets through and getting it balanced out. For some reason, we haven't been able to make that match, so.
So basically, I'm hearing then it's on the front end, you didn't recognize what the cost was going to be, but...
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, Joe Thiele for the record. We switched contractors, so the price changed there, but the VA per diem also has gone up. So we'll have more of that, and to be able to pass through that amount, that's really what it comes down to. We need to be able to.
Okay. Well, I'll look forward to more details. And Madam Chair, if anybody else has any other questions, I'm happy to approve this, but I just will be very anxious to see what that contract looks like with the providers that you have. And it was a concern of mine right from the get-go that we'd be having issues.
And Madam Chair, I'd second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor of approving I-103, please say aye. Aye. Any in opposition? And the motion carries. Thank you so much.
And thank you. I would say we would do a video on a washing machine, but after doing my dryer over the weekend, because my kids killed it, they're very sharp inside, so no videos.
Thank you for that. And members, that completes list I, and we have finished with J. We will go to K, which is the Department of Business and Industry, informational only from our Housing Division. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Christine Hess for the record. Administrator Acroth, of course, has not abandoned me, but he had made previous plans prior to session and prior to the scheduling of this meeting, so sends his regrets, of course. In your packets, of course, we submitted a report. You've been updated on the Home Means Nevada Initiative funds regularly, so here we usually like to provide you the most recent update. We are spending the funds. We have moved through, as of this morning, we're almost 36% spent for our projects. So we have spent $177 million of the $500 million on projects. 13 projects have fully spent their Home Means Nevada Initiative funds. Now, some of them are still in the works because As everybody knows here, we need to spend these funds per deadline, so everybody's been instructed to spend these funds first. So they are still, many of them are still under construction that are fully spent. I'm going to keep it brief. We could talk about a lot of things, and maybe we will, but with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Members, this is an informational only item, but is there anyone with questions? All right, not seeing any. Thank you so much for being here today for the
Thank you.
update. We appreciate it. And that takes us to the next item on our agenda, which is List L. Again, informational items, and we have the first up, L1A on to be heard. And it's the Office of the Governor's and information on the requested plan for the $3.8 million in Federal American Rescue Plan ARPA dollars for renovations on Building 9 at the West Charleston Boulevard campus in Las Vegas to serve the girls with autism spectrum disorder as requested by us at our December 12th, 2024 meeting. You can start whenever you're ready.
Jack Robb for the record. Since the last time we met and had a very robust conversation about this item, we have been very diligent working with partners, working with Campus for Hope, and finding ways that we can ensure that this $3.8 million is spent, and working with partners. We have teamed up with Clark County to ensure that we have a vehicle to get this money out. Clark County, we're working through the process with St. Jude's, Silver State, and others to ensure that this care can be provided to these individuals. And not only these individuals, but I do believe we can expand the care and actually come up with better facilities, longer lasting facilities, and improve the quality of care we can provide by using this $3.8 million. We're going to become very creative with this, ensure that the individuals originally slated to be cared for are primary and cared for first, and then expand services and find a long-term solution.
I see it as two separate items, the Campus for Hope and a plan
Yes.
for the children that we had discussed in December, which was those young ladies with the autism spectrum disorder. I need you to go in a little bit more detail what this plan is. Is this a short-term plan? If it is a short-term plan, then what is the long-term plan? If we don't have a long-term plan, because I think you heard from some of the public comment at the beginning of today's meeting, there's a lot of concern from community members and organizations about it. So can you go into a little bit more detail? You said you've partnered with the county, but we as a state has a responsibility for these babies. So what is that plan? What is that partnership with the county?
Jack Robb for the record. Here's a short-term plan to work with St. Jude's, the county, and Silver State Pediatric. That is to provide care in the most expeditious manner we can. Long-term plan is to find locations that we can team with private providers and find a permanent solution, long-term solution, to have newer houses available, newer accommodations available to serve this type of community into the future. Partnering with nonprofits, private money, and other monies to ensure we can complete projects that bring us into the future in a better manner than we currently serve this population.
I will have more questions, but I'm going to go to Vice Chair Bacchus first.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And before I ask a question for you guys, I've actually had the pleasure, I serve as a children's advocate attorney and have had actual clients who have stayed in those buildings to receive a higher level of care. And it's always important. It wasn't an autism, it was one of the other locked-in facilities. But the importance of it was so important because we lack residential facilities here in the state of Nevada, and we send so many kids out of state. And it's hard when you see those kids not being able to keep their connections with whether it's their siblings or parents or whoever their family structure may be. So I appreciate hearing more and understanding that there is like some sort of long-term plan, because it's so important to keep those children here and provide those much-needed services. And the chair had asked one of my questions diving into this plan, and it seems like you've kind of been able to provide us what you're able today. I would ask to discuss the projected time frame. I know this is kind of hard. It sounds like you may not have a time frame, but I'm trying to understand that. In which the repurposed funds, so we're talking about that $3.8 million specifically of ARPA money. When would it be spent, and how these services would continue to be funded once the ARPA funds are expended?
Jack Robb, for the record, appreciate the question. At the beginning, we're going to work with the county to find care for these young individuals. That's first and foremost. Long-term, we want to use these ARPA funds to look for facilities that we can partner with to acquire, improve, and get them up and licensed within a 2-year period, within the biennium, to add additional beds. We're originally targeting 36 beds. We're being creative trying to get there. I would love to give you more details, but at this point, I do not want to slow the process by giving more details because we do not have firm contracts, but we have a lot of people working on this. Speaker Yeager was present last Friday. We had a well-attended meeting by advocacy groups, by people from Campus from Hope, Resorts Association, the county. Speaker Yeager, like I said, we are all working together with a common goal, not to interrupt services in one bit, and provide better services going forward and ensure the future for these individuals.
Well, I thank you for that, and I know you've done some creative work with some of our state buildings, so hopefully we can do some creative work to maybe get some extra beds for these kids, because I think right now we're at like 70 children throughout the state that are being sent out of state for residential treatment care, and I'm assuming a majority of those are from Clark County. So thank you so much.
Thank you for that. I believe, listening to members on this committee for the last few meetings, our greatest concern is for the services for these youth, right? And so that there's not a break in service, and that they're close to family members. The buildings are one thing. The service for those children are the most important thing. And in the last few days, we've kind of heard different stories. Depends on who's kind of at the table. And sometimes my head was spinning because one agency would say one thing and someone else would say something else. Our biggest concern is the services for the kids. That's it. I know it's still a work in progress. I was hoping there would be a better baked plan by the time we got here today, because that's what the community is asking for. I know we have a few more questions, and I'm going to go to Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm not going to talk about the buildings, but I want to know where in the global plan where are the cities at in this Hope for Campus movement?
Jack Robb, for the record. We're working with city leaders on all aspects of this, whether it's rehousing these young women or Campus for Hope. And we're working through all those processes at this point, trying to finalize everything. But I'm here trying to answer questions on the $3.8 million, and we'll keep going back to Campus for Hope, and I think that's kind of off target. I'm not prepared to answer some of those questions today.
Are we coming back to the Campus for Hope? Because you actually mentioned it, so that's why we're coming
Okay.
back to the Campus for Hope. So it may be off target, but you did mention it.
Okay.
Okay? So as far as the service for the kids, I want to make sure that I understand it right. With the 3.8 million, we have partnered with Clark County, subgranting that out. They are subgranting with St. Jude's and Silver State Pediatrics to provide the services for these young ladies. Where will these children actually be housed in this process?
Good afternoon. Cody Finney. I serve as the administrator of the Division of Public and Behavioral Health. And I'm hopeful I can add some clarity, Chairman Moreno, to that question. So currently, there are 18 youth receiving services on the campus. And Building 9, that was the discussion that originally got us here, was going to provide an additional 6 beds for girls with autism. It's my understanding as we sit here today that the 12 beds for autism are being contemplated to be with St. Jude's. That's been a very successful partnership. Those original 6 beds for the boys has been a very successful partnership with Silver State Pediatrics. And those discussions continue with help from the county, who has been involved with those programs up until now. There's an additional 12 at the foster care facility, and those placements for those additional youth are also being contemplated. I have participated in some of these discussions and seen the discussions about the buildings that they're currently being used, and some of the discussions about the possibilities of what we could do, and witness the possibility of a very large step forward for expanding services in this manner. So from someone who's worked for HHS for many, many years, and from the first meeting that I had, I said, well, what are we going to do about those kids that are living there? This is a very exciting opportunity to expand the services overall. It was very helpful to hear from Legal Aid Center last week about the needs overall, I think, for the whole discussion. So I'm hopeful that that helped provide some clarity about the focus on those specific children that are currently being served and that potential.
That does help. So just to make sure I understand it correctly. Currently, there are 18 youth. Building 9 has 6 beds that was going to be used for the girls with autism. If we utilize St. Jude's has 12 beds. 6 are being used for boys. The other 6 will be used for these 6 girls. And then there's additionally 12 beds at the foster care center. Where is that center located?
Cody Finney, for the record. Thank you, Chair Monroe Moreno. The foster care facility is Building 12 on the campus. I'd also like to point out that I think there was a question at one point about Desert Willow, and that facility is not included in any of the footprints of other facilities. So when the statement is made that that won't be impacted, that facility remains available.
Okay, and I'm happy that you mentioned that, because there was a statement made yesterday that there are no children that are ever turned away from Desert Willow. And I personally, along with County Commissioner McCurdy, did a tour over at Child Haven, and they do have children that are at Child Haven that shouldn't be at Child Haven that were refused at Desert Willow. So I just need to put that on the record. There are children that were there, and that was just a few months ago. I think you answered all my questions, but Chair Dondera-Luke has a question. I may come back.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I'm still sort of stuck in the, I understand why we're sending children to St. Jude's, but I feel like it's a little bit of a Band-Aid. Some of us, most of us on this committee could not be in that meeting on Friday because it was planned while we were doing budget training. So it wasn't that we didn't show up. So I just want to put that on the record. It was because we had another planned meeting with our staff at the same time, and no one ever, I mean, it was just sent out as an invite. So with that being said, I feel like we're sending kids to St. Jude's, but it's sort of a Band-Aid. It's not really a long-term solution. St. Jude's is a private nonprofit, right? It's not a public entity. So when will we know what the long-term plan is? Because right now, every time I hear something, and maybe it's just my ears and my process, but I feel like every time I hear something, it's the buildings aren't good, we're going to move the kids, we're going to put them here, but I don't hear sort of the end story, because these are such vulnerable kids. And we've shipped them to Missouri, and now we're shipping them out to St. Jude, which, by the way, is a long ways away from families who may want to see their loved ones. So while it's a great facility, we have to keep that in mind. So if you could just sort of, I know there's not really a question in there, but when are we going to hear what's going to happen to these kids?
Jack Rowe for the record. I should be able to have a plan to present to you within the next 6 to 8 weeks. And without a doubt, it's going to be, as Director Finney or Division Administrator Finney said a moment ago, a huge step forward for this community. It's hopefully a model we can build upon going forward to provide better service. And I want to back up a minute, and it was pointed out that I brought Campus for Hope in here. I can assure you, all agreements between DHHS and state lands firmly spell out there will be no disruption of service with Campus for Hope moving into that property. There is an assurance from all sides that these individuals cared for at this facility will go to an equal or better facility and be cared for in a similar manner. And my goal is always not to go to an equal facility, but to always improve quality of life for our employees and the people we serve. We haven't missed yet, and we're going to continue doing that.
So I appreciate that. 6 to 8 weeks is, I mean, if it's my daughter or my son, it seems like a long time. And, you know, as I always say, unless it's you, and not meaning even you, meaning anybody. So whenever it comes to our family, it feels different. And I think that's what I'm sort of frustrated with, because it's way great to say, well, in 6 to 8 weeks, we'll have a plan, but we've already been through 4 weeks, right? Because we started this kind of this debacle of a conversation in December, which nobody had any idea of. So I don't know how many weeks before that it was. So, you know, I'm just a little frustrated, because I'm just confused about the process, and I don't know that it's been 100% clear. I've had many conversations with stakeholders, and I understand that what the process, but I continue to be concerned about our kids. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Well, from where we're sitting, it is a short-term plan, but, you know, the county's not in the room. I don't know if they're down south, but I'd like to thank them for stepping up and helping the state to be an answer to a short-term solution to get us to where we really need to be. So if there's anyone from Clark County listening, thank you for stepping in and helping us. It may not be the ideal short-term solution, but if it's a solution that's not going to interrupt the service that's being provided, then it's a step in the right direction. I look forward to seeing in that 6 to 8 weeks, hopefully 6 weeks, what the long-term solution is going to be moving forward. I did have one question. As for the young ladies that are out of state, how many young ladies are out of state? Do we know where they're at? And then once we approve this and the county then does their partnership with St. Jude's, when will they be brought back home for those services?
Cody Finney for the record. Thank you so much, Chair, for that question, because I asked some similar questions this week. And what I learned in conferring with the county is they have 10 youth that they had identified out of state currently. Not all of them were the same 6 women. So there was capacity for 6 young women. There wasn't a specific list. Now, that being said, we have heard, and I fully hear and recognize that there's plenty of need for these services, far more than 6. But what Building 9 was contemplating was the capacity for 6 that had, it's my understanding from conversations with people who've been close to the work, and I really appreciate having conversations with the people who are very close to the work, that 6 individual people had not yet been identified. And that some of the placements out of state are very highly specialized and would perhaps not be replaced by these services. Having worked in the adult mental health system, I've worked on helping place folks in very, very specialized programs that we're probably never going to have enough need here to do. So that makes sense to me. But the effort is always to get those kids back as close to their home as possible, and hopefully never have to even have them come into an office, but rather provide services in their setting. So we always keep that in mind, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you for that. Senator Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Ms. Finney, when you mentioned the 10 girls, and you said that the 10 are not comprised of all of the girls that may have been in the buildings, dig into that a little bit and talk about who are the other girls that are blended now, and why were they moved out of state?
Thank you, Cody Finney, for the record. Senator Neal, through the chair to you. When I spoke with the service manager at the county, she indicated they had 10 youth, not all women. And so that was very helpful for me in sorting out the distinction. There are more than 10 youth placed out of state for the overall services. You can see the numbers get very confusing very quickly. But the foster care, the county manager that I was speaking with described 10 people that they had placed out of state responsibility for, and explained that to me in explaining to me that this 6 wasn't a one-to-one. We were developing the capacity for 6 in Building 9, which was the original discussion that got us here.
So I'm going back to, okay, so the mixture of genders that were sent out of state, what were the reasons why the other group, who was not a part of this informational item, sent out of state for, and what are their diagnoses?
Cody Finney, through the record, through the chair to Senator Neal, I don't have that information specifically, but I'd be happy to gather it up and get back with you.
So when the county manager spoke to you, they spoke to you in hypotheticals about human beings that may or may not exist out of state, but could not tell you that they were autistic or something else, but yet it was a part of the conversation to further confuse you, and so you could have, you understand what I'm saying? Like, we're having it's super circular, and we're having this conversation about a known and unknown number, and the facts are, it just should be, 100% who was sent out of state, and it sounds like in the discussion of finding out around these 3 buildings, we then found out there were additional human children who were sent out of state, and nobody has any information on who they are or their diagnoses. That's crazy talk to me.
Cody Finney, for the record, through the chair to Senator Neal, I apologize for giving you that impression. That is absolutely not the impression I intended to give you. So I think we're talking there. So I work in population health, and we were working on how are we going to provide services for populations. I don't personally work in individual health, which is the very important part of knowing what each child's diagnosis and needs are. So I did not ask for that information. We can certainly get the number of children that are placed out of state and the diagnoses of those children. I did not particularly ask for that because I'm working on the development of programs and the populations that need to be served.
Madam Chair, can I just have one final question? Okay. Ms. Finney, I appreciate it. It's like when you got this extra information, did you say, why are you providing me information that I didn't ask for? On the 10?
Cody Finney, for the record, through the chair to Senator Neal. No, I didn't. Thank you for the question. No, I didn't get extra information that I didn't ask for. I simply got a number because I was trying to identify who the 6 particular women were, and the answer was they haven't been identified yet. We were developing capacity for 6 additional beds.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I think our next IFC is in April. I would ask the staff to put you guys on our agenda for an update. Some of the questions that have been asked here today, by then you should be able to have an update on what those questions are. And maybe by then we will also have Clark County here to join us and say where we're at in the process, since they're stepping in to help us out. But I'd like for you to come back with an update of where we're at on this in April, at our April IFC. Speaker Yeager?
Thank you for the indulgence, Madam Chair. And I think coming back in April makes a lot of sense. I did just want to confirm I was at what I thought was a very productive meeting on Friday, and what happened at that meeting was, I think, concerns were aired about not just who's on that campus right now getting services, but who was supposed to be on the campus and is not going to be able to be on the campus. And I think what everyone left that room with a couple of realizations, if they hadn't had those realizations already, is that we haven't done enough for this population as a state, and we have to do a lot better. And so the commitment leaving that room was to make sure that no matter what happens with the Campus for Hope, that these particular vulnerable individuals are taken care of, and are taken care of in a better, more professional way, in a more appropriate setting. I was very encouraged leaving that meeting that I think we're going to have a good short-term solution and a very good long-term solution, but it is still in the works. So I just wanted to let the committee know that. There's a lot of moving parts with this, but I think it was the first time where everybody was in the room to be able to talk about concerns, and they were heard and taken seriously. And so I'm hopeful that when we come back in April, we're going to have a very good plan, and I think one that this committee and our state can be proud of, because we owe these people better, and that's the goal here. So I'm committed 100% to trying to make that happen in any way possible, and I hope the committee is going to be much more satisfied in April when we have a more definite plan. So thanks for letting me make that statement, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I want to follow up. We have taken some individuals on tour of the existing campus down there, and it's been extremely impactful for them to see the conditions that our staff has been being asked to provide quality care, and the conditions that we're providing that care to those individuals in need. Those buildings are long past due. I am going to be in Las Vegas this Saturday. From 10 to 1, I'm going to be available. Anybody on this committee or anybody within the legislative body that wants to contact me and get a tour of 6161 or a couple of the housing units that currently are not occupied, so you have a good idea in your mind what we're trying to improve upon and get away from, I will be there and make myself available. So that is an invitation.
I am not available this weekend. You seem to plan things when I already have plans, but the following weekend, I will be available and would love to have a tour.
Jack Groff, for the record, I will make myself available anytime anybody on this committee is available.
Thank you. All right. Members, any other questions? All right, this was an informational item only, and we will see you for the tour and again in April IFC. That takes us to L3A, the Department of Administration. We have the report on the State of Nevada's classification and compensation study that was conducted pursuant to Assembly Bill 451 from the 82nd Legislative Session. You can go ahead and start.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Bashir Washington, and I am the administrator of the Division of Human Resource Management of the State of Nevada's Department of Administration. Also with me is Jack Robb, who is the Chief Innovative Officer, Keisha Harris, who is the Deputy Administrator for Classification and Compensation, and my director, Joy Grimmer, Department of Administration. I would like to take the time to acknowledge and thank my team, excuse me, for their hard work and dedication on ensuring that this study gets to the point of where it is now. That team consists of Keisha Harris, Brian O'Callahan, Nicole Peak, Heather DePease, and Daryl Moreland. It is their hard work that got us this far, and their continued work to continue will help us move forward in the process. Executive Order 2023-002, issued on January 6, 2023, directed the Division of Human Resource Management to review and improve state employment hiring, retention, and promotion processes. At the time, the state faced a vacancy rate of 24%, which to date, I'm happy to say has dropped to 13.04%. That is thanks to change in policies, leadership, and the passing of SB 431 in the 2023 legislative session. Key reforms include significant pay raises for state employees, with some receiving up to a 32% increase over the 2 years, which has improved competitiveness in the labor market. As a result of the funding appropriated in Assembly Bill 451, the class and comp study was conducted to align employee salaries and job classifications with the current labor market. The study reviewed over 1,800 job titles, resulting in a new structure that reduces redundancy and ensures fairness across the departments. The new proposed framework also introduces a more streamlined classification system, consolidating job titles and aligning pay with skills and competencies. The proposed compensation model includes 21 salary bands with a 12-step per band, each representing around 5% between each steps. This design helps to support better employee placement, retention, and market competitiveness. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Good to see you. We're going to go to Assembly Member Brown May.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Administrator Washington, for the information that you presented. I just have a couple of quick questions. That was a robust comp and class study and a lot of positions that were identified. Could you describe the timeline and necessary steps, as well as the approval process for implementing those recommendations of the class and comp study? That's question one.
Jack Robb for the
Bashir
record.
Wash.
Oh, go ahead, Bashir.
Thank you. I'll give the classification side, Bashir Washington, for the record. The next steps that we currently have in the timeline is to meet with the various departments to go over the proposed classifications and answer any questions that they may have, and to get answers to questions that we have in regards to certain position titles. As far as the compensation piece, I will defer to Jack Robb.
Jack Robb for the record. I want a timeline was one of your questions, and it will not be in the first year of the biennium, I will tell you that. As everybody's painfully aware, we're failed on Smart 21. We're in the middle of Core NV. We brought up the financial system, and we have not brought up the HR portion. That HR portion is coming live July 1st, and there's no way that we can bring a system on and make all these changes at one time. It's just an impossibility. We need to bring the new system up and stabilize it. In combination with that, we need DHRM to be able to get with all the agencies and make sure that everything we've done matches the business flow of that agency. You have positions like a management analyst. Some agencies use them for policy and program, and some use them in a fiscal capacity. We need to make sure when we're moving these people around that we put them where the agency needs them and we meet the agency's needs instead of assuming. So that's going to be a long process for HR to meet with these agencies to make sure that we meet the agency's needs. So year one, there will be no change. Year two, we're looking to bring in the new positions, move individuals into those positions, and as Bashir brought up, at that point, it changes their step and the number of, or their grades and the number of steps they get. So if somebody is a step 10 now, they may come in at a step 8, and then they move up through the salary band, and that's how we're going to move them into the new salary structure, because we fiscally could not move everything and afford to be able to move everything. It's going to be a phased-in approach over the next few bienniums. But if people were topped out and they weren't at market, they're going to come in below market and have steps they can move into. We did identify, I believe, 12% of people that were above market and other people that are at market. With the pay raises we received when we did this salary survey, it did prove that the pay raises had a huge impact, and that in a lot of cases we are at market. When I say at market, if you look at private, we're looking at total compensation. That means vacation days, sick and paid vacation, looking at future retirement benefits. We're looking at a total package to measure ourselves against. And we didn't shoot for the 95th percentile or the 25th. We shot for middle of the road, 50th percentile, to make ourselves attractive but fiscally responsible at the same time.
Thank you for that follow-up. I'm curious to know, as we start to phase in and over the course of the next few bienniums, when we look at how do we execute the brand new positions, right, the new comp and class study, do we start from the top and roll down? Do we start from entry level and roll up? Or do we go division by division in order to ensure that every one of our employees within the state are being treated fairly, right, and that their positions are being appropriately reclassified so that we are not doing harm in any way to our existing staff? And I don't know that you've worked that out or that you have an answer relative to division or position classification or structure yet, but I'd be interested to know if you do.
Bashir Washington, for the record. What we do when we implement any type of classification study, we look at every position individually, and we base everything on what that person does, what the job duties entail. And it's based on that is how we place, or we just make the decision of which job titles they would go to. So it's not necessarily a process where we work through various departments or a tiered solution. We go by and just review every FTE that we have, and the people that are currently sitting in there, evaluating their job duties, and then placing them in the job title that they belong.
Thank you for that. So what I hear you saying is that every state employee that position was evaluated in this comp and class study would be reevaluated, and you would have a drop date that every new job classification would take effect, and the new compensation would also go into effect. And again, we can get into this at a later date. Those are really the questions that I have. But secondarily, what is the anticipated fiscal impacts of implementing this study's recommendations statewide? And have you all calculated what potential general fund components those would impact in which biennium you execute? Do you have those dollars?
Jack Robb for the record. The governor's budget is flat both years. That means no COLA, but that does not mean no raise. Better than 60% of our staff currently is step 8 and below, so that means they get 2-step increases. They're going to get raises no matter what. 6% of our staff is at step 9. That means they're eligible for one more step. 34% of our staff is at step 10. They are currently not eligible for any step increases. When it's implemented going forward, there's a possibility that some of those that are step 10 today may be at a lower step and move into being able to get steps year 2. But we're still doing that evaluation. But currently the governor's budget is flat, no COLA, and it's just going to go forward that way.
So the fiscal impacts are flat to the budget that the governor presented, irrespective of the class and comp study. There will be no changes overall to the budget implication.
Jack Robb for the record, that's what we were striving for today.
So you're not anticipating any budget amendment relative to employee wages for the state?
Jack Robb, for the record, we have built in the steps that are known, and those are part of the process. Those are part of the budgeting process, but no COLAs at this point.
Okay, thank you. One last question, if you don't mind, Chair. What additional work do you anticipate will be necessary to complete utilizing the remaining funding from Assembly Bill 451? What work remains?
Bashir Washington for the record. So the work that remains is majority in-house work. We need to take the time to sit with the various departments to give them the overview of their job titles, ensure that we have placed the right people in the right job titles, and have those discussions with those departments. So though that work is internal and in-house.
Thank you. So that's internal state personnel, or do you still have the contractor that's on board that the additional funding would be required?
That is in-house, my human resources staff. If there is any additional assistance from the Simmons Group, who I'd also like to thank, that work would be very minimal.
Thank you for that detail. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, do you have any other questions? Not seeing any, and we're losing members minute by minute. They're dropping like flies. All righty. Well, thank you so much for the update. We appreciate you. Sorry about the late afternoon meeting. And that brings us, believe it or not, to our last item on the agenda, which is our second session of public comment. If there's anyone here in Carson City that would like to make public comment, I invite you to fill all the chairs at the table. If you're in Las Vegas, would like to make public comment, I invite you to the chairs at the table there. And if you'd like to call in to make public comment, that number is, once again, 888-475-4499. The meeting ID is 868-2322-7212, then press pound. And again, I'll remind you that public comment is only 2 minutes, and we will be timing you. So go ahead, we'll start here in Carson City, go to Las Vegas, and then to the phone lines.
Thank you, Chair Monroe Moreno, Chair Dendera Loop, and the members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kristen Kennedy. I'm the Executive Director of the Domestic Violence Resource Center in Reno. And I just want to express my deep gratitude for the $1 million appropriation we received. This support enabled us to launch a shelter expansion project, and that is expected to aid 6,500 adults and children fleeing family violence annually. We've used the funds to hire an architect, engineers, consultants to design a 40,000 square foot domestic violence shelter and resource center in Reno. The new shelter will have 43 rooms, so that's roughly 100 beds for survivors and their children. The resource center and shelter will be in one location together so that in addition to safe housing, residents will also have access to free counseling services, protection order assistance, children's enrichment program, benefits enrollments, work skills, and more. So we're currently in the pre-construction phase. We're in a couple weeks going to enter the construction documents phase. So that means that our demo will start this June, July, with groundbreaking at the end of September and completion hopefully in spring of 2027. You will all get an invitation to that. But I just want to say that in planning for this, we did a ton of research, site visits, analysis, and we found that in neighboring states and beyond, there's about 15 domestic violence specific beds for every 100,000 people. In Washoe County, we currently have 35 that are in operation for about 500,000 people. So this project will not only meet current demand, but plans for future growth within Northern Nevada. So again, I just want to say thank you. These funds have helped us plan properly and leverage additional support from private donors. This is an extremely important project because we can now be a better partner statewide to our Las Vegas and in rural areas because we can have the capacity then to take client or victims who may need to flee out of the area from dangerous situations. So thank you for your investment and your partnership in these critical services for domestic violence victims.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Monroe Moreno, Chair Dendera Loop. My name is John Etzel, Executive Director with Boys Town, Nevada. Thank you all so much for your continued support through AB 525 and SB 341. Boys Town, Nevada was fortunate to receive $500,000, and we have been very strategic with the use of those dollars, as have the rest of the colleagues who have gotten up and spoken either at the beginning or at the end today. I wanted to share just a real quick story of a family, of a mom and her 5-year-old son that we had the opportunity to support this year because of these dollars. We knew that the ESSER funding was going to sunset, and we knew that schools in CCSU were going to have some challenges. And so we were able to use some of these dollars to continue services in some of those schools so that there was no disruption to the continuity that we had started in the previous years. We had a mom and her 5-year-old who she was struggling. She was having a hard time. The son was behavior-wise all over the place, lots of office referrals, and could not quite figure it out. Our staff stepped in and started working and providing social skill teaching to that 5-year-old, allowing him to act better in school, be able to stay in class. The mom signed up for our Parenting for School Success classes, learned a whole lot, started to implement some of the things that she learned there, and she started to see some behaviors improving at home as well. But she still thought, I need just a little bit more. So because we've got a comprehensive set of services, she was able to access our in-home family services, meaning we've got a staff who goes and works with the family at their home. So not only now are we supporting them in the school, but we're supporting them in the evenings and weekends at their home as well. Over the next 12 weeks, this particular mom was able to learn skills, be able to, practice those in front of us, be able to watch our staff do those with her 5-year-old. And by the end of it, her 5-year-old has got a good homework routine. He's got things that he can earn based on good behaviors and going to bed on time and all those things. They don't argue as much anymore. And we might not think that that is such a big deal, but for this mom, from an early intervention and prevention, perspective, who was struggling and did not know what to do, this opportunity, these dollars helped, stop something that could have continued to escalate, over the coming years if left unchecked. And it's services like that we are just so appreciative of. So again, thank you for your continued support, not only of Boys Town, Nevada, but of all the other organizations that benefited from the allocation of these funds. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing that story so much. Having no one else here in Carson City, I do see someone at the table in Las Vegas. We'll go to Las Vegas.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Lizette Kian Collins with Nevada Partners for the record. Again, I'm also doing a little bit about Boys Town. We were able to leverage the funds that we received through the AB 525 appropriation to support with some of the programming that we were doing around ESSER, and truly a benefit to the work that we've been doing in our community. We were able to service a total of 1,361 students in a total of 41 schools. A percentage of that, we were able to serve 122 students through a UNLV summer REPA program that allowed for us to actually enroll some of our high school students into college programs and able to obtain some of their college credits while they were still in high school. And with that, we were provided 652 students summer programming. One of the things that I will say is that as we talk about leveraging and hearing all the programs that were talked about today, it's important for us to identify that our community works hard to be able to provide these resources. And it sometimes does feel like we are a Band-Aid to the work that we're doing. But I think it's important to note that we have worked collectively with so many of our partners, and this work that we do, we don't do it alone. We were able to really enlist on other partners that were doing similar work in life skills, mentorship, STEM programming, and really providing the exposure that a lot of the kids in our marginalized communities don't have access to. So I just really wanted to come to thank you for your efforts and just continuing to see our community and knowing that we need the support. On another topic, I really wanted to thank you for what you were talking about in the homeless population. One of the things that we've noticed is that it's an issue in our community, and sometimes it's not as spoken as it needs to be. And I was thankful that there's some accountability being pressed there. We get so many homeless youth coming, and when we refer them out, we don't know what happens at that point. So I'm just really thankful that that conversation is being addressed.
Thank you for being here this afternoon. And for the three of you, thank you for the work that your organizations are doing.
Thank you.
BPS, do we have anyone joining us on the phone lines for public comment?
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Dr. Ali Caliendo. I'm the founder and executive director of Foster Kinship, and I just want to take a moment to share my sincere thanks for the appropriation of $750,000 to Foster Kinship. I just wanted to briefly join my nonprofit colleagues in expressing this deep gratitude to you all and affirming just how critical these funds have been in improving outcomes for the thousands of Nevadans served by all of the incredible nonprofits across our state. Because of our partnership, and as outlined in our report, we were able to serve 27% more kinship families across the state using our evidence-based model of family stabilization. Our Kinship Navigator program is proven to not only preserve family connection, but lead to better long-term outcomes for children experiencing child welfare. I also want to extend my deep gratitude to Chair Monroe Moreno for recognizing during today's meeting the essential role of the nonprofit sector. As the backbone of so many critical services, I know that our sector will continue to come together in good times and in challenges to ensure that Nevadans thrive. As mentioned, the past 2 days have been filled with uncertainty, and yet nonprofit leaders cannot afford to pause the important work ahead of us. So today I want to say thank you so much for your leadership, your commitment to Nevada's children, families, and seniors, and for having our backs as we continue to fight for better outcomes for all of our neighbors. Thank you so much.
Thank you. BPS, do we have any other callers?
Callers, if you have recently joined and would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. With the last 3 digits, 517, you are unmuted on our end and may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This is Anna Binder, individually. As some of you may know, I am a mother who was forced to send one of my autistic children out of state pre-COVID for behavioral mental health. And I have another son who may require services that we may not be able to provide him in home or in this community as he's getting older. The agonizing pain that a mother, father, family members, and caregivers go through in facing these detrimental decisions is one of the most heart-wrenching things that we have to go through. Now we have no clear answer on the living situation for these young women, but there really seemed to be no confidence from Jack in his presentation today. As many of you know, people affected by autism spectrum disorder have an extremely difficult time adjusting to even the most minimal changes in their lives. This isn't just about services, it's about stability and their futures. These young women deserve it, and the girls out of state need to be brought home as soon as we possibly can. I have asked the state several times at the Behavioral Health Policy Advisory Council how many kids are out of state, and I've never received a clear answer myself. If you could, please make sure they bring you solid numbers when they present again with diagnoses and where they are placed, because they seem to be even confused by that. I thank everyone for this work, and we all look forward to seeing these young women have the stability and permanent housing here, home in Nevada.
Thank you.
Chair, the public line is open and working. There are no other callers at this time.
Thank you so much. Members, thank you for the last 2 weeks and all these presentations. I know we had some really long days and a training in the middle of it, but I appreciate all the hard work you guys have put in. And Monday morning, the real work begins. So I will see you all on Monday morning as we start our 83rd legislative session. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.